Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Oh my gosh, y'all. We are going to be diving in tonight into one of the world's most famous cryptids. And it is shocking that I have not covered the Loch Ness Monster as a remote viewing target before. But we are doing it tonight. And we're going to get to the bottom of the Loch Ness and Loch Ness Monster. Find out what this thing could be. What is it? Is it even real? Okay. Are people running away with their imaginations? And, this thing has a very, very long, very ancient, actually, history that I was unaware of. So I just started doing some research on it. And we're going to get into all of that today. It's going from everything from, I think it was like the 7th century, might have been the first sighting of this. All the way through to Aleister Crowley's days as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Potential portals and dark rituals as well that may be opening by being summoned by rituals and magic. And modern day sightings as recent as this month. Okay, I mean, we're going there, y'all. It's going to be fantastic. I do have Barry Littleton here tonight in the studio, and he's done some research on the Loch Ness Monster and sea monsters and lake monsters of his own. Okay, not that he's got them, but I'm saying he's done research on them. And we're gonna get into that as well tonight. And yes, thank you guys so much for all your support, for being here on Monday. We had Nick Sylvester here. That was one of the best shows, y'all. And we did a lot of disclosure during that show. Nick brought the heat on Monday. So if you guys missed that show, please go check that out. It is in my archive, and you guys can find those here on YouTube. Of course, we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube tonight. You can also find us, just go to any of my social media sites, click the link, you can find us tonight live. But you can find all of my shows over on my website. That's the cryptidhuntress.com. And you guys can find all my social media links and any kind of stuff you need, figuring out things about me. You want to look at pictures and whatever, go over to my website. And also, I do have a Patreon. All of the remote viewing data is in my Patreon tonight. All the pictures, graphs, whatever I got that I'm going to be showing to the audience tonight, it's all there on my Patreon. So thank you to all my Patreon members. You guys do mean the world to me, and I appreciate y'all very much. I also have a shop. It's called War Woman Goods. That's over on Etsy, if you'd like to support in that way as well. I do thank you guys so much. Okay. Well, let's get to our show. Okay, let's get to our show. And let me give a little rundown of what we're talking about tonight. I know y'all know who the Loch Ness Monster is, but let's get into this. The Loch Ness Monster is an aquatic creature reportedly inhabiting Scotland's Loch Ness, which is a lake. First brought to the world's attention in 1933, Nessie, as locals call it, the locals believe it might be a Jurassic-era reptile like a Plesiosaur, or a giant fish, or maybe even an eel. Several eyewitness accounts describe the creature as about 20 to 30 feet long, with the flippers of a dolphin and a long neck and a small head. Researchers who analyzed DNA samples from the icy waters of the Scottish lake identified about 3,000 different species, but the results ruled out the presence of a large animal such as a dinosaur. Not only has Nessie been spotted in the lake, but some have reported seeing the creature walking on land as far back as the 1800s. The first account of an encounter dates back to the 7th century, but they continue to this day. So what exactly is the Loch Ness Monster? Well, I was tasked with this as a coordinate remote viewing target. And this is one that I remote viewed. I think it was back in December. I waited to do this one for the public. The data is very interesting, and I think you guys are going to get a really big kick out of it tonight. And I think, actually, I was contacted just before the show today. I don't know if you guys know RGB. I think it's RGB. Ryan, I can't pronounce his last name. It starts with a G. Ryan contacted me. He's actually I think he said he's in England right now about to present. And his hypothesis on the Loch Ness Monster just might line up with my data tonight. Okay, so get the popcorn, get ready. we are going down a fierce rabbit hole tonight, and it's just data. It's for entertainment purposes only. However, this is pretty deep, y'all, and I mean it when I say deep. Okay, and of course, to help me figure all this stuff out and to get my thoughts together, I have my good friend, Mr. Barry Littleton, here in the studio tonight. Barry has his own YouTube channel and his own Patreon. It's called Barry Littleton. And you guys, please go over there and support him. He's got a library full of videos over there on his channel. And he also does live shows and streams as well. Please help me welcome to the show our good friend, Mr. Barry Littleton. Hey, Barry.
Hey, what's up, Jessica? Thanks for having me aboard. This will be interesting, I think.
Oh yeah, hop on board the Loch Ness Monster train tonight. We're going down the Woo train. Actually, we're on the Woo train. We're always on the Woo train, aren't we?
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to say something. I had went live a couple of days ago, and towards the end of it, I got pretty descriptive, and I just want everybody to know that was completely my deal. Okay, I don't want anybody else getting you or anybody else involved. That's some experiences I've had. I was very candid, and I was, to be honest with you, I was frank enough that I was worried it might ruin my reputation a bit, but it actually, the responses I've gotten from it has been overwhelming, because I was going to take that live down, and some people from your audience, and I come from other platforms, that it really blew me away. So I just want to say thank you to anyone that was involved in that. And it was just it was really, really a trip. So it's a blessing in parts. I think it shows how really awake people are becoming. So
super woke. Everybody's over here is woke. And what's up? Speaking of being super awake, we've got Prometheus Lens podcast. We got Doc over here. What's up, Doc? Thank you for being here tonight. In the studio, you guys are in the chat. Actually, you guys go check out his YouTube channel and his podcast. We were out in the woods together, and he's been on the show too, by the way, but up in East Tennessee. So thanks for being here, Barry. Yeah, that's really cool. I did see your video, and I know you are passionate. Okay, you're just passionate, and we all hit those points at times. You know what I mean? Where it's almost like a lot. We carry a big load on our shoulders, especially when it comes to the information that we're putting out. And then, it can get heavy. Okay. It just gets heavy sometimes. And we gotta let that load out sometimes, we gotta drop the load.
Yeah. And, exoneration, yes. Definitely. And, it's, and truth always comes to light. And I think that's what's really important. You know what I mean? And, too often, and something that I appreciate about you is when you've dealt with some of these scoundrels, you don't really say anything, and you kind of, take the higher word. I do. I don't like it, and I will burn. I've got an arrow, I've got a bow, and my swordmanship too is very good. I don't like crap from people. I don't like, these people that like to take advantage of people that are just looking for answers, or people that are weak. Just because they want to be famous in these communities. You know what I mean? That's I've been calling it since you met me. Watch these people get bit by the fame bug.
Oh man, I know. Well, you know what? I just focus on me at this point, and people are people. People are people. People are going to be people. And I like you being here, and because I know you're not that way. Okay. And we're just here. We're trying to figure out the mysteries of these worlds.
Only a little bit twisted.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Slightly. Just slightly. Hey, I love how passionate you are, and you do have a quest for the real truth. Okay, out there. So yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And one of the many things that I didn't just pop up on the scene. I've been around since 2014, and you and I have done a lot of good work that I noticed that people don't want to acknowledge. And it's stuff like that. But a lot of my work goes unacknowledged, but I don't want you to be in that same train. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different stuff we've done. Just the targets remote viewing alone. It kind of, to be honest with you, kind of trips me out.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? We have a wonderful audience here. We have the best chat on the internet. And it is just it blows my mind every show, and I'm so thankful and so grateful for everybody who's here and supports the channel and supports your channel as well. And we're just one big old happy family over here. And and everybody, I feel like I can always feel like the audience is just as into these topics as I am. Okay, and you are. And so that's what keeps me going.
Oh yeah. And like you always said, you like to do it because it's fun, and that's where it begins. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Just got done doing an NAACP interview, historical figures over my father yesterday, and something he had mentioned is that no matter how good he seemed to be, and he would have been about the third or fourth person that what they call the NBA now. He was that far back, Bill Russell, and people were trying to get him to go in. But he said that it was, the thing is, it wasn't fun anymore. The racism made it not fun, and he played the game because it was fun. And then it wasn't. So it's kind of, where we're trying not to go, right?
Yes. Well, as long as it's fun to me, and I know I made the mistake of saying that because right after I said that, people started making it purposely not fun for me anymore. So we got to be careful what we say publicly because people are watching and they're waiting to attack. Okay, so just let's keep on moving. Just keep it moving. Okay, and that's the way I've had to kind of figure out how to do things. Bobbing and weaving. But seriously,
sometimes you got to be dipping and dodging, though. I'll tell you what. Let's talk about this. Loch Ness Monster. Some reason I feel like again you're gonna hit. I don't know. I feel like it's gonna hit my skeptical buttons again. I keep my spider sense keeps going off. What kind of data do you got? I haven't seen anything yet, so this will be interesting. I've heard so many different over the years. I've always been in the Loch Ness Monster and most of the sea serpents, but it's been so many things over the years and so many different hoaxes and so many different theories, I'd watched, it was a few years ago now, 5 years or more. There was this gentleman and he was from over there where the Loch area. And he did a whole expose on how the Loch Ness Monster is hoaxed. And he debunked everything from that orb to the one with it above the water. There's some sort of a thing on a log and all sorts of stuff. And I knew some of that, but I mean, he went really deep on it. But then just at the end of it, that one. Back in the early 80s, late 70s, man, that one sold hard, man. I used to think, my God, it must be real. That's one there. That was proven to be a fake. But there's also another one that is the oar, the fin, that why everybody thinks it was a plesiosaur. But
I have a few pictures to show. This was a recent one right here. To me, that looks like. See, here's my thing. I grew up on a lake, and I've grown up on several lakes. I've lived on several lakes in my lifetime, and I know there's a lot of logs and sticks. I remember, Barry, when you and I were in Grafton and we went to go have dinner one night with some friends over off of was that the Mississippi River, I guess? And remember those logs? I mean, they were like massive logs floating in that river, and it was dangerous. And I thought, man, okay, that we got to think about stuff like that when it comes to like Loch Ness. I know Loch Ness is a lake. It's not like a wild rushing river like the Mississippi. Okay, it's not. I guess it's a lake. However, there's going to be debris in it. Okay, there'll be debris in it, and so that may account for some of the sightings as well. But I don't know. I'm not saying all the sightings.
Finishing that thought. The guy he explained like everything we could go through to prove it's hoax. All right. Then at the very end, so they asked him, so you think the Loch Ness Monster is complete bogus, not true? And then oh no, there's something in there. I've seen something. At the very end of this deal, he said, I've seen something I can't explain in there.
Oh my gosh.
And he describes it. He made it kind of sound like a giant eel to a degree. But I mean, still, it's like I can't believe the guy spent 90 minutes debunking it. At the very end, oh yeah, I've had some sort of a sighting there. So it's just little stuff like that, you know what I mean? But another thing I'll throw out just before we get started. I think I mentioned this on your show before. I like Jeremy Wade, the river man, right?
Yes,
The river fisher.
I do
Yeah,
too.
he
He
does
ain't
a
scared.
lot. He does a lot over cryptids. He went to Loch Ness and he did a whole expose over that and everything. And he had come to the determination through evidence that he thought it was the species of Greenland shark that get in there.
Oh, okay.
So that's another one that I've heard, and I mean, he gave some pretty good evidence for it. I know somebody in your audience is too sharp. Somebody knows the episode I'm talking about. Jeremy Wade, he was all out there at the lot, man. It was a longer episode too. So anyway, but that's just something else you can throw out. The Greenland shark, the eel.
Okay.
These are just a couple
The
of things that
eel.
might be a little more palatable than some other concepts. So we'll see. I'd like to say I don't know, and just the fact that we have, if you look at Randall Carlson's work, and especially the end of the Dryas period, the end of the Ice Age, that's in the Ice Age itself, I think you have almost so much freezing, like down at the bottom of the ocean, we've been frozen,
Mhm.
and you have a lot of creatures that are down there. It's
Wow.
being proven now that would have kept reproducing throughout the Ice Ages, and it starts surfacing again after that's over. That period's over. So
Oh, yeah.
Elasmosaurus, that one, yeah.
Yeah, it's really wild. I remember going to the Tellus Museum. There's a museum up in Cartersville, Georgia, down the road from the Etowah Indian Mounds, and they have a huge Plesiosaurus or Plesiosaur, I guess is how you say it. The bones in the museum, and I walked in and I was like, "Oh my God, that's the Loch Ness Monster!" I was so excited to see that because it looked like what I would think the Loch Ness Monster is. And every time I'd go, I had to go see that, because I was looking at the Loch Ness Monster. But that's one of the theories, is that this is actually a plesiosaur. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's what's really super duper interesting to me, Barry, is that it's not only seen in the water. Reports go back all the way to the 7th century. Okay, 7th century. There's a castle on the lake as well. Okay, a very old castle, and you can go visit there today. Of course, you can go visit today, and you can stay right there. As a matter of fact, you can book a room over here. I don't think it's in the castle, but there's like a hotel right behind it, and it's right there on the loch. And oh God, what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought because I've got so many thoughts in my head right now.
You're actually talking about that it's been seen on land, and I've seen some of those descriptions. Right. A lot of those, that's kind of where a lot of people got it being a giant eel.
Because the eels walk on land because they don't have legs or anything.
It's walking now.
They can walk. Yeah, it's walking. No, that's what some of this is some of the eyewitness accounts are, not only in the water, but they've seen. There was a bunch of school children back in the 1800s who actually watched what they consider to be Nessie waddling down a hill and going into the water back in the 1800s. Okay, that's walking. They said waddling. Sounds like a duck or a goose, personally, but they said it was huge. And there's another gentleman who actually.
So did it have fins or did it have legs?
It had legs, but it also had flippers as well.
What?
According to what they said. Okay, so this is the picture. This is from an eyewitness account of this gentleman that was on his bike, on his motorcycle. Mm-hmm. And he claims that it walked out in front of his motorcycle, walked on 2 legs, and it was going towards the loch. Okay, that's what he claimed. But that looks kind of small, because most eyewitness accounts today say it's like 20 feet to 30 feet big. I know, right?
Oh, for the record, I think it's worth mentioning that, there are other creatures that were supposed to be quite similar to Nessie reported. And, like, for example, I don't know if Ogopogo might be one, but also you've got the Lake Van monster. That one was supposed to be some sort of plesiosaur. And you've got Champ. Champ and Nessie supposed to be quite similar, aren't they?
They are. There's several lake monsters that are very much like the Loch Ness Monster, including, I think, Lake Norman, the Normie monster. Have you heard of that one? That was in the Carolinas.
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
there's
few of them. Some
several.
of them have weird names to pronounce. I was trying to look here and see which other ones I didn't mention, but some of them have some weird names. The San Clementine monster. That one's supposed to be some sort of plesiosaurus. But when it comes to like not just champ, but when you start getting down in the Congo down there and in the Amazon, they say that their brontosaurus is still alive down there in the jungle, and that they stay in the water most of the time, even though they have legs, and they only see them by their necks way above the deal. In fact, that's in the Congo. There's a lot of reports in the Congo about brontosauruses deep in the jungle there.
Wow.
I think that's fascinating,
It is. It is. I
And
mean, there's lots of reports of modern day dinosaurs right now, all over the world.
my uncle, he's no longer with us, but he had swore when he was in the war that he had some sort of dinosaur they ran into in the jungle, and he described it being something type of a reptile that stood up and started spitting salmonella at him. And the way he described it, he said, and he started describing it, it sounded almost like it was similar to one of those Jesus type lizards.
Yeah.
But he said it was way too big. He said there's stuff in the jungle that is supposed to be not existing anymore. I just thought that was interesting. He talked about all the snakes that would fall out of the trees that were killing people, the mambas. So they were totally unprepared for that. That's what he said. That's what he told me. So.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, there's no telling what all's out here in this beautiful earth. Okay, there's no telling what all kind of animals are out there. I think I might have encountered something that sounded like could have been a velociraptor out in the woods one day, and it was pretty scary. I can't lie. It was a little scary hearing that out there, not knowing what it was. I still don't know what it was to this day. But hey, I'm alive. It didn't get me. My kid took off running. Okay, so we're fine. However, I would not go swimming in Loch Ness personally. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to go swimming in any lake anymore after my shows.
Question: You got two choices: Loch Ness or Lake Lanier. You got to go for a dip. Which one?
Loch Ness. I would do Loch Ness before Lake Lanier now. Yeah, I would, because I've already been swimming in Lake Lanier. It's like a Jello substance when you dive into that. So yeah,
you swam in there?
Yeah, I've swum in there many times. I used to ride boats on that lake all the time. Yeah. I've gone swimming in it. It's gross. Knowing what I know now, no, I will not go back. I won't go swimming in there anymore. No, I wouldn't let my kids swim in there anymore now. Not after all this. Not after all the research we've done. But Loch Ness, I would go swimming in Loch Ness probably, but it would be quick. Okay, I used to swim with alligators, Barry, on purpose. When I was a kid.
Oh, Crocodile Dundee Jones. Oh, great. Okay.
Yes, my parents took us. So it's a wonder we didn't end up with one less child every time we went.
What did you say? Alligators or crocodiles?
Alligators.
Okay.
Yeah. Wakulla Springs. Yeah. Yeah. That was our vacation spot as a kid.
Well, I guess if you're a man, I would say you have testicular fortitude. Since you're a woman, I don't know what to call it. I guess boldness.
I got more than a lot of dudes I know. I'm just saying.
You got balls? Big balls? Okay, let's go back to let's go to the day.
Figuratively. Okay.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, we're so funny.
I used to watch wrestling. I used to like a wrestler named, they came to my town a couple times, Balls Mahoney. His song was "I have big balls, you have big balls." It was just hilarious.
No, that's not me. I don't
I think it's a rock song or something. I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm pretty sure. Do they have alligators in Scotland? I don't even know. I think the water would be too cold. They say the water is pretty icy. And I don't think there's alligators. I think alligators have to be in a tropical climate, if I'm not mistaken. Because we don't even have alligators we have alligators in South Georgia, but not Middle Georgia. They're creeping up into Middle Georgia now, but they're mostly down in the swamps of like South Georgia and then below into Florida, like in Alabama and the Panhandle of Florida.
Since I know you're into this type of thing, can you imagine then what it would be like to witness and behold and in the presence of an 8-foot tall bipedal crocodile or alligator? What do you think that would be?
What?
Yeah. Well, you're all into the reptilians, man. That's what a lot of people say they look like.
Reptilians. That's right.
And that's why I always crack that joke. I said the fact I've not seen a 10-foot tall bipedal crocodile, alligator, or what's the other one in between them? There's another one, not cane. God, well, you got alligators, you got crocodile, caiman, right? Caiman. I wouldn't want to be crocodiles.
Around.
Yeah. Yeah, but slightly different size though, right? Different species of crocodile. Either way, I wouldn't want to see any of them bipedal, even 6 feet tall. I'm good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Chalk says huge ovaries. Oh, that sounds weird. That all sounds weird. Oh my gosh. But okay. Well, I haven't covered a lot of Scottish cryptids, I guess. This is I'm going to say this is one of the most popular cryptids in the world, Barry. Wouldn't you say that? Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. It's well known. It's one of the most well known, definitely. And it goes so far back, you got some things in the 70s that were big hitters. Loch Ness is one, and the next one is Bigfoot. Those would be the two biggest. UFOs, Loch Ness, Bigfoot.
Yeah, aliens.
Especially if you watched In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, like I did.
Oh yeah. Well, this is one of the first things I'd ever heard about when I was a kid. Something that was not. It was like a thing of legend. Okay, legend or mythological creature. It was definitely Loch Ness and Bigfoot. Those were the two, and aliens. Little did I know I'd be chasing all of them as an adult and talking about it publicly. How weird is that? Gosh, dreams really do come true. Just kidding. Oh my God. But yeah, so this is one that has been hoaxed. Okay. I'm sure many times, a couple of times, that one picture that I showed in the beginning, I thought that was actually a real picture of the Loch Ness Monster up until about this past year. I guess I found out that was like a hoax picture, allegedly. And so I was very disappointed about that because I always thought that was real. But apparently it is not. Okay, apparently it's not. It was, it says a fake photograph from 1930s pretty much proved to a lot of people that Nessie's not real. Okay, and that's how it went. But of course, like I was showing earlier, some of these other pictures have shown what people believe could be the Loch Ness Monster. If you zoom in on that picture right there, it does look like a plesiosaur. Actually, it looks like something with a long neck. In the water right there. It is a red circle. I found that online, y'all. I didn't do that myself.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Exactly what the hell am I looking at here? And where is it in this red circle? Is that at the top left?
You have to zoom in. If you zoom in, it's directly in the middle of that circle right there. You got to zoom in. There is something that looks like it has a long neck. Okay, so it has a long neck. It looks like a plesiosaur kind of, but I'm not suggesting. Listen, the power of suggestion will make you see it when you don't really see it.
Would you say that's pareidoia?
Pareidoia. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, you know what irritates me sometimes?
I'm sorry, I thought that picture sucks, man. That did nothing for me at all.
You know what? Okay, I was going to be serious here. Okay, so like I have people that will send me pictures, and they'll like circle something, but what they'll do, they won't let me get a chance to focus in on what it is. Right? They draw the outline of what they want me to see. And I've noticed a lot of people doing that. Not a lot. There's a couple of people that will do that, and like online, if there's like a picture of evidence, photographic evidence, before they let you figure out what you're looking at with your own eyes, like they draw it out and like outline the face and the boobs or whatever it is. It's like, okay, like that's great, but I wish I had seen that before you did that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I take photographic evidence when it comes to stuff like that with pareidoia with a grain of salt. Personally, I do. That's being a field researcher. I don't know. It is what it is. I don't take that super seriously. I just don't. Okay.
I mean, I guess it's extenuating, circumstances, because like, for example, when I was at that ranch and the last time I went there and did all that, the first time, 3 times going there, for some reason, the phone, I had a newer phone that the camera actually worked. So I took all those pictures of that yurt, and I was just trying to get a picture of the yurt. And somebody had sent me several of the pictures that I had and circled this thing looking at me. and they were saying it's not pareidolia. I can see these things, and I wish I could just dismiss it as that, but
Yeah.
I was putting out these little gifting things and doing this little sneaky stuff I was doing, and I was getting beat at every turn. I mean, I was trying the maximum surveillance techniques, invisibility techniques, all that stuff, and I was getting beat, and I couldn't figure out how. It was driving me crazy. And then it makes sense when I see these pictures. The person saying, "How tall is that yurt?" That's probably about 12 feet. I don't know. So, well, this thing's taller than that. And I started, and with that, I was blown away. And the fact that I would have been walking right around that thing and did not see it. You know what I mean?
I have a good way of camouflage.
Probably for the better. It would have done me much justice for the old nerves of the beat up. I would have been good. So I'm glad I wasn't able to perceive it. So, or sense it for that matter. I mean, I didn't feel like I was being watched. Well, I always felt I was being watched out there, so I can't say that. That's not true.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if Harley's in the chat. What's up, Harley? He said there's a video of it on YouTube. Now, I don't know. I am so behind on the comments, y'all. I can't keep up with the comments, so I'm so sorry. I think you may be probably referring to Nessie, I'm assuming. But yeah, I don't have any videos to show you guys today, but y'all go look up the Loch Ness Monster on YouTube and stuff. You can probably find some videos of Nessie. Okay. And but you know what? I know I sounded like so skeptical when I first started the show. I'm like, well, it could be logs. Okay. And it could be. I come in from a research standpoint. I have to always have a skeptical mind as well. Open-minded, but you got to have that skepticism as well with some of these pieces of evidence when it comes to the Loch Ness Monster. However, I believe the Loch Ness Monster is real. I have no reason not to believe it's not real. Okay. I've always believed it was real, and I want it to be real. I want it to be real. And the fact that we have all of these reports coming out of all over the world of plesiosaur-like cryptids, I'm going to say cryptids, dinosaurs, all over the world, and several right here in the United States. I mean, it says something like they all can't be figments of imagination, Barry, I wouldn't think. What would you?
No, definitely not. I've always found that sea cryptids particularly interesting because, when you start dealing with what we always talk about portals, that happens within water, probably more than land. And also just from Cretaceous period to now, you have some species that just didn't die out that we think did, or they're trying to, bioengineer them in these labs you and I have talked about many times. They go back way before Loch Ness was even reported. We're going with some of this stuff. You're going back a million years on some of these labs, millions of years. It's pretty damn creepy, to be honest.
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So, Jock. Hey, Jock. He says, "Do you or Barry think Loch Ness might be a plesiosaur?" Yeah, I think it could be. My theory. This is my personal theory. This is before I ever had been given this as a target. I always thought that maybe, just maybe, there was a portal, like an underwater portal or something, where these things were like going through space and time, like time's bending, and maybe they were there before, and like they're here again. I mean, dimensional overlap or something. Like that's just what I thought. I didn't know. That was just my thought, or maybe it was just they were always there. They've never left since the Jurassic period. But I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. I think it could be a plesiosaur though, or it could be something completely different. Barry, because I did want to say there is a picture. I don't know if I have it pulled up for tonight, but there is an actual picture of what we call the Ultima Haha here in Georgia. Now that is something that looks like what the Loch Ness Monster would be. I don't think I have it here. I didn't pull it up, but the Ultima Haha is down in South Georgia. I think it's near Brunswick, maybe Brunswick, Georgia. But it looks just like the Loch Ness Monster. But there's actual picture. We have a picture of one that's dead on the seashore, and it looks like what the Loch Ness Monster is.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. There's one that's being pulled up by the thing too, right?
Well, this one's just laid out, and it's got some guts hanging out of the side of it.
And that's there's another one. God, what was his name? Globular Monster or the
The
St.
what?
Augustine Monster. Those
St.
things.
Augustine?
That's supposed to something that was seen on the shore also, like similar to a bigger kraken type of creature. You know, when dealing with something else, when dealing real quick with the Loch Ness thing, another reason I kind of always lean towards the giant eel thing is, you know, I've always been fascinated by those giant eels that have been reported around the Olympic Peninsula and that follow the salmon. They're called Kamos. The tribe there calls them Kamos. And we've talked
Yes.
about them before. You know, and
Yeah.
some of the Kamos are reported as also having almost these horse head type heads.
A kelpie. Is that like a kelpie?
Yeah, and you know, but I mean they can't like they get through it. Like first person told me about it was this gentleman. He had talked about that he worked in the canneries in the Olympic Peninsula, one of the fisheries, and that behind there they had all these nets. There were these nets with these huge holes in them that they said these Kamos would come in and take the salmon. They chew right through the nets easily, and they couldn't catch them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, you know, so it's very interesting. I never heard of that to that time, but you start hearing stuff like that they follow the salmon when the salmon run goes, they're following them up the rivers and all that. And how common are these giant eels like that? Just saying.
Yeah.
And you know, there's some scientific stuff to maybe support some of that.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be a matter of time before one of them gets caught, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned salmon because that is something that lives in this Loch Ness in the lake, or salmon and pike. I think they said pike, if I can remember correctly. Pike is another. There's big fish, and
Well, I didn't know salmon was in Loch Ness. That's interesting.
that's what they said. That's what I read today. So,
And that's like, it's not still. Is this still part of the English Channel? It still locks in the English Channel. Is that correct?
well, let's see. I think I've got a map right here. We can look. How about that? If I've thought to pull it up, here we go. Here's one of the maps. One map came up. Yeah, it looks like there's a channel goes right through there. I have to. Oh, it's blurry when I zoom it up. So yeah, I can't tell what that is. So maybe.
You have to
It's
teach
in
me how to do all
Scotland.
that, by the way.
Do what?
You have to teach me how to do all that, by the way. I'm still somewhat impaired on my.
I will. Well, I had some better maps, but they just didn't upload when I was trying to upload all my pictures. So, but that's the one that came up. So I'm not sure. We may have some people from Scotland in the chat tonight. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe somebody would know. Let's see. That's an interesting question from. Hold on. Let's see. Dawn. Let's see. Dawn says there was a TV show called Primeval that had portals opening in time. And well, that's kind of like what I was saying. Like I thought maybe there might be a portal under the water, like in the water. Is that even possible, Barry? Can there be portals in the lakes and the oceans?
Why not?
I know, right?
Why not? And I mean, if you look at the amount of USO activity we have,
yes,
there's almost no doubt. You know, I was looking at one of these really older videos that I had. It was marked it. And it's the one where it's these gentlemen are speaking a different language. They're on this boat, and you see this UFO out there, and you hear these jets. They start coming, and boom, it goes down. It's a huge splash, though. But before it goes down, it emits like 2 or 3 probes out of it, or some other ships. Then it goes boom. They're really quick, and the jets and other jets come by. And there was a lot of debate on those. But my only issue was that a lot of times when you're dealing with gravity modification technology, there's not going to be a splash when they enter the water. You know what I mean? You hear about that a lot of USOs, and I think some of the ones that were described even by like Columbus and some of those what are called explorers, conquerors. Anyway, thieves. I mean, when they were doing that, they were reporting seeing those ships going into the water and not creating a splash. So
wow.
You know.
Yeah, you know what? That actually makes sense. I have a friend from my hometown who hit me up a couple years ago who was in the Navy. I guess he retired from the Navy by now, I guess. But he said that he had watched on several occasions when they were out in the ocean on his ship, watched USOs come out of the water and go into the water. He said, and that was something he said that he was fascinated with the Bigfoot stuff. Because he didn't know whether to believe in Bigfoot or not, but he had seen UFOs on several occasions, and it defied everything that he knew, before that. And so if that was real, Bigfoot was probably real too. So
for the record, one of the best books that I've read over USOs was another book by Preston Dennett, USOs and Underwater Bases. It's a really good book. He just a bunch of cases in there,
Oh yeah. Well, it's all very fascinating. It's all very fascinating. But why wouldn't there be portals under the water? And people report UFOs going into the lakes at national parks, Barry.
Mm-hmm.
And so which adds to the mystique, the mystery of the deep underground military bases being in our national parks or underneath our national parks potentially.
And let's take it a little step forward. Something obvious but isn't mentioned much. If you're dealing with beings like, per se, even the Nomo, or beings that are aquatic or water beings, they're going to use their water on their planet, the ocean there. That's how they're going to be leaving and go to, traveling, is in that type of a method. They're going to be using not space, and it starts taking us into not just like what is called fluidic space, which kind of was made popular by Star Trek Voyager and species, 8729. They're supposed to be from fluidic space, but it takes us into some of that science of how much is space kind of like fluid in that way, or like a liquid in that way. So I can't say I agree with all that, but it gets interesting when you start dealing with the different permutations of it, especially if you're dealing with dimensions, different dimensions, different densities, who knows, but that would be a definite way for them to travel. They'd be coming through our ocean. They'd be arriving down there and only probably coming up here to check out the cancer on the skin of the earth, the humanity.
Oh, no. No, we're not all cancers on the earth. I remember reading the Georgia Guidestones, and one of the commandments said it was like the Illuminati commandments or something. It was like be not a cancer upon the earth. And I was like, well, why are you calling a cancer on the earth, buddy? Okay. That's what it said, though.
Remember, when you have a group of people with several of them that have negative intentions, as in destroying the planet, things of that nature, that group becomes a virus upon the surface of the planet, especially when you start dealing with morphogenic fields and the conscious field put together by many. It's a pretty serious deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It is.
I'd mentioned something about triggering the earth into being what's called lytic cycle of, like viruses and bacteria do, of reproducing, like how the phage lambda might be able to change actually our DNA to being chemical luminescent. Okay, so when dealing with that and dealing with the deep biosphere of the earth and the possibility that we could trigger something there that would cause the earth to be in a lytic cycle, which is life-giving, opposed to lysogenic, which is like death and more suppression in that way. It's things we need to think of. These are theories that I mentioned when I talked about the ISIS thesis, that some things people should evaluate. What can we do to really heal the earth, and things that are beyond what we're told, just this new age crap, something really scientifically we might be able to do energetically and through our intent of will that can change things here. That's where it's at.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry. Really.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a good point, because we have the opposite that happened back in the early 1900s over here at Loch Ness with Aleister Crowley and opening up. I mean, they call it the portal to hell right there, actually, right there at Loch Ness. I know this is not your favorite topic, Barry. I know the negative entities and things like that, and the negativity, and I don't like it either. But I think that it could account for what some of this high strangeness that goes on at Loch Ness, actually, and that is a really good theory, actually. Sovereign Cosmic Wildman, what's up, bud? He says water is the #1 conductor for portals. That's a very good point right there. And right underneath that comment, Abbott says, hey, Abbott, maybe Aleister Crowley spilled it up from Bolskine. I think that's how you pronounce that, Bolskine Manor in Scotland. And wonderful point. I'm going to go ahead and show a picture of what Abbott is referring to right there. And we'll get into this in just a little bit. But yes, Aleister Crowley did purchase this home I believe, back in, I think it was 1899, if I'm not mistaken, I think. And eventually, I think was it Jimmy Page, okay, with Led Zeppelin, I believe, ended up buying this. But this was used. This is, you could actually see, this is the manor that they bought right there. And that's the lock right in front of it. It's a really cool picture right there. But Aleister Crowley did some of his most diabolical spells right there. And some of his magic was done right there to open up a portal to hell right there. And so we're going to talk about that in just a minute. I was going to save that for like towards the end, actually, because I want to get into the good stuff, the happy stuff first, because I think that Nessie deserves to be seen out in a good light. Personally, I don't think she's ever eaten anybody. Have you heard of anybody getting hurt by Nessie, Barry? I haven't. So
just scared, right?
Just a little scared right here. But let's go back a little ways. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Well, recently, and I think it was in 2018, they had scuba divers that went out and tested the water to see what kind of life they had out there, to see if it was conducive for a gigantic plesiosaur or some kind of gigantic lizard or gigantic eel or something out there. And they said that DNA samples did not indicate the presence of any large reptile or fish at all, like sharks, because some people were saying, well, maybe it was a shark. You know, that was an idea. And evidence of eels was found. So they do have eels out there. And somebody, I think it might have been Moondog, said that they had seen a big gigantic eel, and they can get huge. So that led to theories that the monster was an oversized eel of some sort. Now, eel is EEL. Okay, eel. I know I got a southern twang, y'all. So in case you're wondering what I'm saying, it's eel, EEL. Okay. But DNA, like some people thought, well, maybe it could be a giant otter. Like what if it was the Kushtaka berry? Okay. They were actually kind of theorizing it could be an otter. No DNA of otters was found. And they just said that some people just thought maybe it was an oversized otter, but it definitely was not that either. Okay. I want to get into the sightings that were not in the water. Okay. Because I think this is important. Okay. I think this is very important. Okay. So in 1879, a group of school children are said to have seen it waddling down the hillside towards the loch. Okay. Waddling. And I'm going to pull that picture back up. It was like a drawing of here's another one. In 1933, a couple called Mr. and Mrs. Spicer said they saw a large gray creature with a long trunk lurching down the road towards the lake. George Spicer said it looked like a scenic railway. When they realized it was a living thing, they watched it move in horror and fright. The plants and vegetation in its way were later reported to be flattened as if a very heavy, large body had passed over them. The next year after that, a veterinary student named Arthur Grant almost crashed into the creature on his motorcycle. He was traveling from Eyewitness, which is right there at the loch. And hold on. And he noted that the large body, long neck, small head, flippers, and tail were on the animal. He said it was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. It quickly disappeared into the water, and it got frightened by his motorcycle. So it actually got scared of his motorcycle, and it went running, I guess, into the water. Now that would, prove, I guess, or that would suggest that it walks on two legs. I mean, that's not a plesiosaur, Barry. I don't think a plesiosaur. I mean, if we look at pictures of a plesiosaur, it's going to have flippers, right? On the bottom, on its bottom. It's going to have flippers all around. It's like flipper feet, flipper hands. And that is not going to be what this man saw. So, I mean, this could be something completely different altogether. If these people are seeing this waddling down the road, waddling down the hill, waddling across
I have to be curious. How many accounts are there that just this guy and one other person, or how frequently has that been seen? You know what I mean? And
that has not been seen
I ask that
since.
question scientifically because, like you mentioned, that doesn't fit a plesiosaurus, and that doesn't fit a brontosaurus either, or any dinosaur that we know of. All right. That doesn't mean it has to be, but it's just getting a little fishy there. You know what I mean? My spider sense goes off. Yeah, my spider sense goes off with that one, but doesn't mean it's not true. But I have to ask just so if you knew. So, just is it like something like you've had dozens of people who've seen, or just one or two people?
Well, the bunch of school children back in the 1800s saw it, and then there was the couple that saw it. That's two, and then the one guy on his motorbike. And that's it. Those are the only reports I can find of it actually being outside of the water. But now this is interesting too, because Cheeky says maybe related to a platypus. Okay. It's weird, y'all. It's really weird. It's a little different.
I'm curious, when it comes to eels, don't oarfish get out of the water or get on the sand and waddle around? Oarfish are very, very big. And I know because I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not an expert on. I'm not Jeremy Wade, but when like dealing with something like the K-Moss, I had asked the guy from Olympia Peninsula. I said, could they have been oarfish? And he said no. He said he described the K-Moss as being like black in nature and bigger than even what the oarfish are big, but this is even bigger. And they said sometime that the oarfish or the K-Moss actually had a almost horse head. And when you start looking in the Congo, some of those sea serpents are described as having these almost horse heads when they come out. So I just find that interesting. I mean, I don't have the answer, but I'm just curious if an oarfish is what they could have seen in Loch Ness, or are they even native to that area? I don't know. Out of my pay scale. But I
love this. Okay, so I didn't see that. I'm behind on the comments as always, but Sovereign said the sea monster in SB. So I'm not sure where SB is. You're referring to talking to Abbott. Is the oarfish washed up around SB several times? Where's SB? Okay, South Beach. Maybe that's South Beach. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'm way behind on this. But anyways, oarfish is there. It's a thing. It's an oarfish wash up dead on shores. That's what Don says. So. Okay. Yeah, everybody's talking about lake monster right now.
Oarfish is a giant eel, right?
It's a giant. I don't know. I don't even know what an oarfish is. I've heard of them before, but I don't know. Eel,
I think.
Oh yeah.
At least I've always been under that impression, because something like the Bear Lake Monster, they were thinking maybe that might be an oarfish, or was the Canvey Island Monster? Anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going. You're just talking about something. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I get confused. There's a lot of serpents, a lot of sea serpents, but there's been a couple that were washed up. I remember the St. Augustine, and also the Globster. Anyway, sorry. That doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a loose type name, but it's.
Oh yeah. Well, Don says that oarfish are deep ocean fish. Now this is in a lake, so I don't think an oarfish would be in the Loch Ness. I mean, if it's a deep ocean fish, I don't know that it's connected to the ocean. So who knows? Who knows? Now we haven't even gotten into my data yet. Okay. Yeah, the data is going to blow y'all's mind. Actually, I think personally. I think it's great because it's not any of this stuff, according to my data. Okay. It's something that I find very interesting because it's something we've been talking about. Oh, hello.
Hey, I was looking up oarfish. That's definitely not what the K-Moss is.
Okay.
But yeah, that's cool. That's good information though. Good information.
Okay. Sorry, y'all. I had to yell at my son to turn his PS5 off because my internet.
I thought you were talking to me. I wasn't.
No,
I
said Ben.
Sorry, I was trying to look at a picture.
My internet went down for a second. Okay, okay. Well, let's see. So here's the other option, Barry. It's the Hot Mess Express. I said the Woo Train. It's actually the Hot Mess Express tonight. Okay. Okay. This could also be a myth. Okay. It could just be that this is not a real animal. Okay, maybe it is just a figment of somebody's imagination, whatever. That's another option too, right? It's another option. Okay, it's not an eel. It's not a dinosaur. It's not a giant otter. It's not a shark. It's just people making stuff up. It is the collective consciousness. It's like what do you call that? It's like where everybody believes. It's like mass hysteria or something. I forgot what you call that, but Yeah. It's like everybody, you tell like that's kind of what happened. I feel like at one of the state parks that I went to go do a Bigfoot investigation at. It's like the word got out. Like there might have been like a really good sighting at one point, but then there were 9 within a month because the word got out to everybody that was going there that there had been a Bigfoot sighting. So guess what? Everything became a Bigfoot. Everything. And I think that's kind of what happens sometimes, unless you keep it quiet and nobody knows there's been a Bigfoot sighting. And then if other people have a Bigfoot sighting, then cool, that's probably a Bigfoot sighting. Okay. But when you put the word out there, everybody thinks they're seeing a Bigfoot. Okay. And it could be that kind of like groupthink. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to the Loch Ness Monster as well. Could be. I don't know.
That's a good one too. I'll find that deal with that guy. I mean, that's like an hour-long documentary, and he pointed out all that stuff. And I was like, man, everything he said was really good. So you were sure this guy his sole thing was debunk it, and then at the end he says he's seen something that he couldn't explain, but everybody else is lying.
Yes. I don't know. But you know what? This is actually good. Okay. Thornley is actually saying it's the locals stirring the Loch Ness cauldron with an intense fire too. And it also is a wonderful tourist place to go to. It's like a destination for people that want to go get a view of the Loch Ness Monster. Okay. And that's great. I mean, so I have reports from 2025. Okay. Even up to this month, there have been sightings of the Loch Ness Monster, and people go out there pretty often. They have like tour boats and all that kind of stuff. You can go out and look and watch for the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, out there. I would love to do that. That'd be one thing that I'd love. It's on my bucket list. Okay, I want to go look for the Loch Ness Monster one day. But nonetheless, let's see. I think I had some information potentially on the castle that was out there. I don't know. There is a castle. Let me show these pictures again. These are just some artist drawings, some, AI drawings and things of kind of what people describe they think they're looking at out there. Okay, that would be about how big it is. This is what we're talking about. But however, there are no real pictures of the Loch Ness Monster.
Isn't that a dragon?
Well, that's a dragon right there. It is.
I noticed the first picture you up, it had a horse head. I found that interesting.
Yes. Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? Kind of. Well, I don't know if it's that one. Some of them. This is an interesting one too. That just looks like a big fish out there. These are all, computer generated. But this is the actual ruins of the castle that was there as well. When I think of castles, I think of dragons. Okay, I do. I think of dragons. But I certainly don't think of the portals to hell usually, but we're going to get to that in just a minute. Okay. So I don't know. Why don't we go ahead and get into the data? I mean, why not? They say that there have been at least 1,160 reported sightings of the Loch Ness Monster since it was first spotted in 564. In 564. Okay. It's 2025 today. But 1,160 reported sightings. And and nobody knows what it is. Nobody's caught one except Jimmy. I remember I did a show with Jimmy Payne, okay, and James Rink a while back, and Jimmy was telling us that he said it was fact. It's probably fact. If he says it, then that's what he means. But he said that it was basically like Star Trek 9 was based off of the actual. They were taking whales off planet. He said it was actually the Loch Ness Monster and her baby. That's what he said. But we're not going to go there, Barry. We're not.
I'm not saying anything.
I don't know.
I think you did that. I mentioned that just to antagonize your buddy here. That's what I think. It's like when I
we're going to look at it from every angle.
It's like you're talking about Cobb County. I think it was a get back.
I love Jimmy.
It was a get back.
Oh my God. Got him. I'm just kidding. It's we have too much fun over here, man. It's that's funny. Okay. Well, let's just get into the data.
And for the record, it was Star Trek 4, and they were trying to say that really the whales were the Loch Ness Monster. And hey, that's cool, man. Whatever it takes.
I thought it was 9. See, I don't know my Star Trek. I do not know my Star Trek.
Oh man. Okay. Anyway, let's go to the data, please. Well, I still have a little bit of sanity left.
I know, right? Okay, I guess the other information I was going to put out was just like about what they eat, and it was the pike and the salmon, but I already talked about that. Okay, and all right, well, let's get into the data. Okay, so I remote viewed this back. This was back in December. Okay, when I remote viewed this, and I was hesitant to even go over this. Okay, with the public, because I was upon analyzing, I have a lot of data right here. Okay, but it was not so much what the Loch Ness is, but like where it is and like maybe why it's there. Okay. Now there is one animal written twice in this data. Okay. There's one animal and it's written twice. And I think it's very important because I think it might answer some questions as to what this is. And we're going to get to it. Okay. So let's go ahead and start off with some of the sensory data. Okay. Some of the sensory data for the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, we're trying to figure out what the Loch Ness Monster is. Grassy, luscious green, hot, ritualistic, center middle vibrational, crossing, and important. Okay, that was some of my sensory data. Now, excuse me. So for some of my analytic overlay, I'm just going to go down the list here. Okay, I actually drew out a lot of graphs and drawings for this target. It's kind of different than a lot of the targets I've done, actually. Okay, so I was picking up on something that had grass and land. I was seeing grass and land. Fire and ritual were two of the first things, or fire and ritual were like the first four things I wrote down of the first four. So fire, ritual, vortex, and center. Excuse me one second. I got a cough. Okay, so fire, ritual, vortex, and center. I wrote down energy vortex, high vibration, and I wrote dimensions, come and go in and out. I wrote come and go in and out. And then I heard alarm, set it off. I wrote meditate and mediate, both. I wrote both, meditate, mediate. And I was picking up on a cross. I kept seeing a cross. Now, a cross, it was not just like I actually drew, it looks like a Christian cross, okay, but also an X, okay, and I wrote crossing and a cross, okay, and I wrote relic and realities, okay, so it's almost like, okay, I've got this data, and it's like meditation, rituals, okay, ritualistic, dimensions, something coming and going. Okay, that was in my data, and something that was a relic. Okay, and realities. That's my first page of data right there. Okay, so I wasn't writing down any kind of like animal or anything like that. I feel like I was actually focused more on this target of like where it's at and why it's there, like I said. Okay, that's my first page of data. What do you think so far, Barry?
You know, to me, it sounds like people opening up, conjuring up an already existing portal, and keeping it open for something to transport to and from. So it sounds like to me, something that would be called ancient and something that they might have been trying to summon up to. You know, it gets a little creepy because that takes us into, you know, things like some of those creatures that come through here, like probably through when we have some of these atomic bombs that explode and it creates these cracks, these fissures, and these things come through and then they can't go back. But that sounds something similar to that. That sounds like straight conjuring to me. I think our friend Dennis would be all over that if he's in the chat. I bet she's saying it right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and show the audience kind of like what I drew for my stage 4. Cause like it went straight into, I started seeing, I kept picking up on like a mirror or something. And it was so weird because it was like one of those, what do you call it? A psychomantium or something. I think that's what you call it. It's like where you go and it's like you sit in a room full of mirrors and it's like, it's almost like all these different realities, like all around. It's like you and like different dimensions or something, like all around you. I know that's such a weird thing to say, and it may not make sense, but this is what I drew.
Almost like an old school fun house. I know.
Yeah, something like that. So this is what I drew. Okay, and so it was like And I drew on top, it says reality, reality, reality. So all these different realities, I know it's weird. Like reality is on top, stacked beside each other. Okay, like parallel realities. And let's see, how many did I draw? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I drew 8. And I drew a line through all of them. So it's like, I know this sounds, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it also does. And I wrote multidimensional parallel universes. And I actually wrote the TMNT cartoon. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like how they're all, this is the only way I can describe it in my brain, because that's all I know is like watching these like Spider-Man cartoons where it's like all these different realities, but they all come together occasionally. They usually cross. Okay, they usually they run into each other out of different realities. It's like Spider-Man sees Spider-Man, but it's not the real it's not that Spider-Man, but it's another version of that Spider-Man from another reality. And that's what I was seeing. Like that's what I was trying to understand what I was I was trying to interpret what I was seeing. Okay. I know.
Something worth mentioning, I think. No, really, it's not. No, I'm not cracking jokes. I think something worth mentioning is that I've mentioned several times that book by Phyllis Swimmer, Earth, the Only Planet of Choice. And I've got a copy of it, and I don't keep it in here, so I'm sorry, so everybody can see it. Maybe we look it up. But during that, these beings that they call the Council of Nine, that come from the the zone of cold, but they described the different dimensions on Earth, and they kept calling them civilizations that exist within. And that's one of the things I really liked about that book, because it was explaining things like I had already learned priorly a couple of times. And supposedly, when it comes to Earth, the different dimensions are layered like the layers of an onion. And you know how many of those are before you get to the middle. And that's what you have there to a degree, and they started, it's things like they had names for some of them. Like one of the most advanced one they called Hoova, Hoova in that book. And there's another Atlas, Atlas, I believe, or Alti. Anyway, people can look the book up, but they were saying, when you start dealing with the ripping of dimensions, whether it be through the hydrogen bomb or people conjuring with intent, the intent and imagination is just as powerful as anything we know as far as affecting the fabric of reality. That's a fact. One of those experiences I had, those throne beings that told me that the warp fields of our thoughts affect reality. I never even thought of it in that way.
Wow.
But when you're doing stuff like that, conjuring like that, and it's interesting, you start tying, you mentioned, Aleister Crowley earlier and all that. And I've heard so many things about that castle there. And honestly, the first time I even come hip to that castle was, don't laugh, but I have to use a reference. It was my favorite Doctor Who. It was called Revenge of the Zygons, but with Tom Baker. This is probably second season. But anyway, it was about Loch Ness Monster. There were these Zygons, these aquatic type beings that were, I guess, kind of, they were under the loch, and the Loch Ness Monster was something they were calling the Sarazen that they brought from somewhere else, and it was half cyborg like, and yeah, I mean, but they went to that castle, and they were sitting in that castle supposedly and talking. That's the first time I got hip to the castle really and try to learn more about it, and then you find out there's supposed to be a bunch of dark arts going on there. Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I'd heard, but I don't know. I don't know.
Wow. Well,
did that come up the data? Keep going, my friend. Keep going. I'm all ears.
Isn't it interesting? This is very interesting, right? And I mean, okay, so what the sensory data that set that chart off that I wrote, okay, was simultaneous. I wrote down simultaneous. Like I was seeing something that was happening all at the same time. It was like all these different realities were happening all at once. And then there was like a line going through it, like something could move through that. Oh, I know it sounds weird, but anyways. So parallel universes.
You got the coolest chat going on. We're talking about one thing. They're talking about stuff. You got a bunch of movie fans over here talking about Spider-Man and all sorts of stuff. I can't look over there anymore. So you keep going. I'm listening.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Focus,
That's pretty cool.
Barry.
Star Trek, they're going on everything. I like that.
Yeah.
That's my kind of thing there. I dig that. By the way, last Spider-Man movie, I thought the best part was my favorite one was Tobey Maguire. I'm glad he was in that movie. I thought it kind of was cool how he still have the organic thing. Anyway, sorry. Go on what you were saying.
Oh my gosh, yes. Jock says Nessie could be a benevolent guardian of the Loch Ness area portal, keeping demonic and regressive entities from crossing into our reality. Ooh, could be, 100%. Okay, well, then I drew another graph, like another chart or something. It was like another picture, and I was picking up on something that was very deep. Okay, and I actually wrote deep, and it looks like that's the next thing I drew. So that could very well be under the lake. Okay, because I wrote deep. It could be like the layout of the lake. Maybe that's where Nessie lives, or maybe that's where the portal is. I don't know.
Was that at all connected to the drawing on the top?
Yes, I think so, because it went straight from that to that. Yeah. I don't know how, but that's just what it's just what I was seeing. So that's just what I wrote. But I just kept seeing something that was really deep. And that was like parallel universes, then straight to like the map that could be like the lake on the bottom or something. And I actually wrote down, I don't know why I wrote this down. I mean, I was picking up on a photograph and a sonar weapon. I wrote sonar weapon. Okay. And I heard a voice. Yes.
Oh, wow.
A sonar weapon.
Really?
Yes. Why? What is that? What is the significance of that?
Well, for me, it's just, I'm sorry, just for me, it's oh gosh, I'm gonna sound like a weirdo, but I'll make the connection. Okay, I was long since fascinated by those whales that were beaching themselves. You know what I'm talking about? Then they were beaching themselves, and their
Yes.
tails were turned vertically. Okay. And you know, whales swim. It's up and down motion. It's sharks that go back to back. They got hit with some sort of a weapon, that sonar or something, that turned their tails, bit their tails. Okay.
Whoa.
And you know, when dealing with that, and not just energy weapons, but they say it's something hit them that also disrupted their sonar. Their sonar was disrupted by one of these weapons, and then it bit their tails also. So you're dealing with electromagnetic frequencies, scalar frequencies, and some other things that, you know, that really, you know, and I'm trying to think what type of whales they were that beached themselves. They weren't gray whales, were they? No. Oh, somebody in chat, tell me what type of whales it was. There, a bunch of them beached with their tails turned. I've done a video over it, but when you said that, it just reminded me of that. That's underwater type of sonic weapons and things of that nature, sound weaponry, or that can be used also, you know, to also create portals. Also, sound can do that. Sound, electromagnetism.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know,
I've never even heard of a sonar weapon. I didn't know what that was. I wrote it down because that's what I heard. It's like sonar weapon. Okay.
Wow, that's heavy.
Sonar weapon.
Sorry.
Interesting.
Well, I didn't interrupt you. It blew me away when you said that. It caught me off guard, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that's why you're here. Okay. We got it. I love it when things resonate and you can tell me what the heck it is, because I have no idea. I'm just a channel for the information. Okay. So sonar weapon is what I wrote down. And then I literally heard a voice say, "What do you want?" And so, of course, what did I do? I did a deep mind probe on whoever that was that said that. And I was like, I just did a deep mind probe. I was just like, okay, well, who are you? And all I heard, what I wrote down was, "I am always here. I am always here." And then I saw a mirror. Again, it was like that whole mirror thing. I'm going to show you the picture I drew. This is weird. So I said something about like a psychomantium, right? And it was like the parallel realities and stuff. This is what I wrote down. It was like another, this is why I didn't talk about this publicly for several months, because I didn't know how to interpret all this stuff. Okay. So this is what I wrote down. This is like a square. It was like a mirror. It's like a mirror image. It's like maybe it's like two realities, or it's like one person looking in a mirror that's in a box. I don't even know what that is. Okay. What are you making this, Barry? Does that make any sense?
Well, man, you know, this is getting bizarre, because one is that takes us not into the cube and the boxes things, which you know are ways to trap things from other dimensions too. But when you're mentioning this psychomantium, or aka almost like the funhouse, using multiple mirrors reflecting on each other in a box type of form is a way to trap something.
Oh God. Well, that could go to that whole Aleister Crowley
penetrating dimensions to stop it.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, this could all be connected to the whole Aleister Crowley thing. And why else would Aleister Crowley would have bought a house right there on that loch if it wasn't some kind of sacred ground already, or there was some kind of energy field right there, like ley lines crossing? Remember, I said I kept writing down a cross section, something there. There's something there, some kind of energy. I wrote down vortex and all that.
We should be interested to see if that's on a ley line. If Loch Ness is on a ley line,
I guarantee you it is. There's no way it's not. There's no way it's not. I don't know. I don't have a ley line map for Scotland, so I don't know for sure. But anyways, I find that box really interesting because that's why I said in psychomantium, that word is not in my data. I just said that because that's what I'm interpreting it as with the data tonight. Okay. Because I don't know how
mirrors
in a bunch of mirrors facing each other.
That's to trap something. I mean, because at a certain point, if you have just two mirrors, it can create the Casimir effect, which also is, more like creating something in a portal. But when you start boxing it in the cubicle form, that's going to be for containment. Wow, that's fascinating.
Okay. Wow.
Not very good.
Got some great comments in here too. Okay. All right. I still have 2 more pages of data, so I got a lot more to talk about. Okay. Okay. The next thing I wrote down was parallel reality. So a lot of parallel reality data. Okay. Parallel realities, multi-dimensional, bunch of realities going on all at once, and then something cutting through all of them. I don't know. I actually wrote down ordered. I wrote down the word ordered. It was part of my sensory data, and I wrote ritualistic abuse. An old order. When I wrote down order, old order for my analytic overlay, I was picking up on, I actually wrote AI, like artificial intelligence or something. I don't know. I just wrote down AI. I was picking up on, I wrote down wet, cold, and water. So like I was picking up on some cold water, and I wrote down a landmass and an ocean because I thought I was looking at an ocean, I guess. And I wrote flooded. I actually was picking up on like the Great Flood or something. I wrote down the Great Flood. That's what I wrote down. And remnant relics and artifacts, something ancient and old. And I heard still here, because remember I did that deep mind probe, and it said I am always here. And then I heard a voice say, I'm still here. Okay, so something wanted me to know that it's still here. It's still here. I am still here. It's still here. So I heard that twice within this session. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. As if it wasn't already interesting. The next thing I wrote down after I heard the voice say, I am here, or still here, was dragon. So I actually wrote down dragons with an S, and then I wrote dragon underneath it. So of any life that I could have written down, of whatever this target is, after all this parallel reality data, all this multidimensional reality data, and whatever else I wrote down dragons and dragon. Okay, which I find interesting because there are people who believe that this thing could be a dragon, actually. And actually, one of the people who saw it walking on land described it as being a dragon. Okay, but anyways, I digress. Let me finish the data real quick. So I picked up on the water. I wrote down fog. That was one of my intangibles. Okay, so like fog, foggy. I was in a very foggy environment. I wrote that, and I wrote down ocean again, but I also wrote down lake underneath it, ocean, lake, bottom dweller. I wrote down catfish, okay, because I'm a country girl and I grew up with catfish in my lake, and I know catfish live at the bottom of the lake. They're bottom dwellers, is what we call them. That's what I call them, and so I wrote down catfish as an analytic overlay because I was trying to figure out like why I was at the bottom of the lake or the ocean. So I just wrote down catfish, okay, but I think that. I wrote down dangerous, something that was deep below, aquatic, and something that was, okay, I wrote down 3 words. I wrote down danger, and in danger. Okay, I know it's peacocking. but danger and then in danger, like something is an endangered species. And then I wrote something that's in danger, like something it needs to be careful because it's in danger. And that was pretty much the whole target right there. That was a whole session. What do you think about dragons? Do you think that could have any substance to what the Loch Ness Monster is, Barry? What's your opinion on that?
What dinosaurs do you think dragons were?
There's a bunch of them that could have been a T-Rex. Well, there's aquatic dragons. Okay, there's all different types of dragons. Actually, there's some that fly. There's some that probably don't. I think dragons are dinosaurs. That's what I think. I think
I
dinosaurs
kind
are
of stick to
dragons.
that more. I mean, you sure that it's not Pete?
It's not who? Pete the dragon.
Pete the
Pete?
dragon.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's
all right.
I wrote down dragon twice.
It's just I find dragons to be a fantastical name for dinosaurs and different Cretaceous period of dinosaurs. So I mean, it's a matter, like for example, everybody keeps saying Plesiosaur, but there was a Allosaurus, which was bigger than Plesiosaurus and maybe lived deeper. And there's several of these aquatic type one, because which one is it? Is it Ogopogo? That is Ogopogo supposed to be a brontosaurus, or is that one that looks more like? Let me see if I can look it up.
It looks like a brontosaurus. The Ogopogo does.
I'm looking at a picture now, and this one looks more like its fins. But yeah, but like I mentioned, the Congo, they say they see several of those brontosauruses, and they're mistaken. All the time, people will think that they're a serpent because they just stay in the water up into their neck, about where that is there. So I don't know. It's just interesting, but I think it might be interesting to try to identify what dinosaurs this might be. That's possible, that even fits the description people are saying. Because for me, when I think of dragons, to me it always looks like I think of the Pterodon, the pterodactyl.
Pterosaur. Oh yeah, pterodon. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, I think that is. I think this is really cool. I mean, I myself have seen what I do believe might be a petrified dragon in Alabama, and I do believe the dragons were. They ruled the world at some point, okay? And I think they were dragons are very real, I believe. But I don't know. It's just data, okay? Like I always say, these targets it's just remote viewing data. But dragon was in my data twice. Dragons
and it
dragon.
could be extraterrestrial species too.
Could be.
If you listen, what the Chinese have said that some of their dragons are more or less star beings, ancient aliens.
Ancient aliens, yeah. It could be. I mean, these are mighty big animals. Okay, the way people describe what they say 20 feet to 30 feet in length from the head to the tail. It's pretty daggone big. So at least it's about the size of a school bus.
One thing interesting about that dragon, like the representation there, is the head.
Mm-hmm.
The horse head type head that these serpents have been described as having.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
In different parts of the world, but especially in the Congo. I've heard that a lot. The Amazon, they say that.
Yeah. I think that we could.
I think the Zaire River also, Zaire River, I think.
Yes. Jock, this is cool. I think I pulled this up a while ago, but I'm going to read it. Jock says, ooh, catfish kind of ties it together. Chinese dragons look like eels, water dwellers, and whiskered snakes. Yeah. I mean, what could be going on at Loch Ness too is that there's just a whole lot of different animals, different species in there too. It's probably multiple animals that people are seeing, multiple fish, reptiles, I don't know, whatever it is out there. I say my data says dragon. Okay, so It could be, but the fact that the majority of my data was about multi realities out there, it makes you wonder, okay, what attracted the world's most notorious warlock, basically, to this area? And who I'm referring to is Aleister Crowley. Okay, what would pull him over there? Now, I have repeatedly talked about Corpsewood Manor here in Georgia, where we have, the two gentlemen that were unalived with their dogs. One of their dogs' name was Beelzebub. Okay, and they were Satanists. They practiced Satanism. Okay, and to this day, it's called Devil Worshippers Mountain up there. And the story goes that Anton LaVey went and showed them where to put their house. He was the head of the Church of Satan, if anybody's not familiar with him. Okay, well, people who practice the dark arts, okay, like Aleister Crowley, okay, they're going to know where these power centers are, right? Where they're going to get the most bang for their buck with their rituals. And I don't know this for certain, but I'm assuming this. I would think that if he's going to go out there, he's going to buy a piece of property. He's going to buy a place where he can do the most bang for his buck when it comes to his rituals, I would think. This is called the Bolskine house. And like I said, this is occultist Aleister Crowley and Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page owned this at one time. Many believe this is a portal to hell. And when I say that, look, it's right here on the Loch Ness, right there. And it is situated on the southeast side of Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands. And most of the house's reputation has to do with Aleister Crowley, but it was an infamous location centuries before Crowley purchased the property. The parish was formed in the 13th century with Kirk, which is the church, and a graveyard also built around that time. In the 17th century, Minister Thomas Houston was claimed to have been tasked with laying animated bodies back in their graves after an evil local wizard raised the dead in the Bolskine's graveyard. Now, this is in history books. A wizard came and brought the dead to life on that very property, Barry. What the heck? He reanimated corpses, is what they say. Okay, which is really freaking weird. Out of the graveyard, they had to put the bodies back in the graves. Okay, and it says the Bolskine house was built on that site where the church once stood. According to local legend, it caught fire during the congregation, killing everyone inside. It concluded its first chapter in history. Everybody inside that church died alive. They burned alive. This house that we see right here was constructed back in 1760 by Colonel Archibald Fraser and was first used as a hunting lodge. It was purchased by Crowley from the Frasers in 1899, and it kicked off the darkest and most arcane chapter in Bolskine's history. The occultist thought it was an ideal place to isolate himself and perform a series of mysterious rituals called the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage, or Magi. I don't know how you say that. In his autobiography, Aleister Crowley explained how he would conduct his magic, saying that the first essential is a house in a more or less secluded situation. There should be a door opening in the north to the room. And hold on, I don't really want to go through a ritual here. I'm not going to do that. But they say that, okay, so there's a particular part of the house that he wanted to have there. In particular, it would be a lodge where spirits may congregate. He took over 6 months to prepare for this ritual, including celibacy, abstinence from alcohol, and he summoned 12 kings and dukes of hell to bind them and remove their influence from Crowley's life. I mean, this was just kind of a dark thing that he did there. Okay, very dark thing. All these paranormal things were already happening there. I mean, there have been mass deaths on this property. Dead bodies have been raised from the dead in the graves by a sorcerer or a wizard centuries ago. And like I said, back in the 7th century, which was like 500s or something like that, that was the first sighting of Nessie back then. And there were sightings throughout all the centuries pretty much of Nessie. And when all this was happening, Aleister Crowley's housekeeper lost like some of his children. Like all these horrible things were happening to people that were all involved in all this. And the black magic kind of got out of hand. I don't know what happened with the rituals there exactly, but I just know in 1913, he sold the property and left, hopefully shutting down the portals. But people say that it opened a portal to hell right there is what they said. And in 1969, there was a filmmaker named Kenneth Anger who was a Thelemite. He was a follower of Aleister Crowley, and he bought the house, I guess. And I guess Jimmy Page bought it after that. Not Jimmy Payne, Jimmy Page, y'all. Okay. From Led Zeppelin. And all sorts of paranormal activity went down there. It was not pretty. People were getting possessed. People were getting attacked in that house by supernatural forces. And yeah, not a lot of people stayed there for very long when they came there. But anyways, there were even like people would stay there, and they say that like at night it sounded like there was a wild animal that was like snorting and breathing really hard and like trying to scrape into, like, tear the door down to their rooms and things like that. I mean, it was very evil there. So the house, I think the house even caught fire recently or something a few years ago. And I think it has been, I guess they built it back. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's a beautiful place, but I sure as heck wouldn't stay there. I would rather swim in Lake Lanier, Barry, than sleep in that house. I would swim. I would dive, not head first, but I would dive in feet first in the Lake Lanier before I'd sleep in that house. But that's all right there. The most, like I said, the most notorious occultist in all of the world, in all of history, as far as I know, decided that would be the place to do his most elaborate ritual right there. And why? If there wasn't some kind of portal already open there, right? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's a bunch of satanic crap. I mean, I stay back from that. I mean, that's more Dennis's area than mine. I stay away from that. But I mean, what you're dealing with, just an active area that's a power spot. You've got these people that do ritual sacrifice there, using blood, using things to conjuring things up. And I mean, that's just what that is. And everyone's tying, obviously, this creature to that. So that must be the connection. We don't know for sure that's what it is. Somebody saying that Nessie was taking souls. What evidence is there of that? I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's just little stuff like that. I think we kind of say somewhat more reality, but when it gets to that negative stuff and that conjuring, letting in those dark entities or attracting those dark entities by generating your favorite word, loosh, and different negative entities and emotions. It's a trip, man. So anything's going on. I mean, it takes us those people that are perfectly possessed too, and I want nothing to do with them. And when you've been on property like that's haunted property, because you've had that type of activity going on, it's not a pleasurable thing. It really isn't.
It's not. It's creepy. I mean, I do not care to ever go back to what is that? Corpsewood Manor. I don't care if I ever go back there. It's just, I don't like the vibe. I try to stay high vibe, but you know what? Sometimes I feel like I get called to go places like once because I got a pretty good vibe about myself. Okay. And so I like to think maybe I'm helping the land a little bit. Sometimes I go places like that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm delusional. I probably am. I'm super delulu occasionally when it comes to stuff like that. I'm always trying to see the good in things. I'm trying to make sense of why I'm going places. Maybe that's it. But nonetheless, this is really interesting, Danielle. Thank you so much for this comment. She says, some say some of these occultists go underground and meet with a dragon about prophecy and things. And now that's interesting because my data suggests this Loch Ness could be a dragon. The Loch Ness Monster might be a dragon. And maybe now whether it's conjured or, I don't know, maybe it's just there. Maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but this is just a really interesting comment and I can appreciate it. I don't know. I think there's some things that are more connected than we could imagine. Okay. And so it would be cool to know. I mean, I don't know Aleister Crowley's work so much. Okay. I have heard such wild things about Aleister Crowley. and all his magic that he did, and he does not have a very good reputation. Okay, he doesn't have a good reputation, but nonetheless, there is some sort of portal that probably was open there, and whether it does or does not have anything to do with the Loch Ness Monster, I think it might. But see, here's the thing: the Loch Ness Monster has been seen for way longer than he was there doing those rituals. Okay, so how do we explain that away? You know what I mean, Barry?
What is that generational dark activity there? Generational satanic stuff that he was already turned on to, so. Yeah.
Well, that's like how we come into like something we talk about pretty often too, is like cursed land, and like where they have like battles and bloodshed and stuff. Like a lot of times it happens over and over again in the same places, the same regions, because the land requires blood or whatever, and so that could be the case with this generational. I mean, my God, can you imagine all the stuff there? I would never want to buy a property that had that much trauma on it. I mean, there should be some kind of law in place. It's like, you've got to know, like, they got to tell you the history of the land as far back as they can find it historically before you buy a piece of property. I would think some places they do have laws, I believe, where you have to be told if someone died on your property. I think. Have you heard that?
Not where I live. People moving into places where people just kicked off. Yeah. Normally don't stay long. I mean, I don't know. It's so deceptive. Like where I live, I mean, the Native Americans were just decimated, all the tribes. So you've got a lot of blood saturated land where I live. And sometimes that stuff produces echoes. The earth produces these echoes from the past and phantom images and things like that. And especially if you're capable of psychometry, be careful where you walk here. I've been on some places near the river that were so haunted. You know what I mean? To the point of where, like, one place on the river, I was doing a crossing over. I was actually after a specific earthbound spirit, someone I knew that crossed over. I knew that died. I knew they didn't cross. So I had to try to get them to a place with someone else. I was trying to cross them. And during that time, that whole room, that whole building filled up with earthbounds. It was kind of like,
really?
It's kind of like Ghost. Remember Whitney, what's the name? God, I said Whitley Strieber. Jeez, excuse me, I'm kind of tired. Goldberg, Whoopi, Guiden. But after she was communicating with Swayze, he went back to see her, and all those dead people was in her place. And so she said, what'd you do to me? They all know about me now. And, because she couldn't even know that she could really see before that.
That movie Ghost.
But things like that happened to me. There's so many, and some of them were wondering what I was doing. Some were wanting me to cross them, and I had to clear the room. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And one of those deals where it's a little nerve wracking when you realize that many earthbounds are walking around here. I've said it before on your show, and I'll say it again. The earthbound population is more numerous than the living, and there's at least a couple people in your chat right now that probably work with me, and they had a few on them. We all do, even if we know how to protect ourselves and are strong. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. Well, not everybody, but most people do. 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 got earthbounds on them. And probably 10 out of 10 will tell you that they don't.
Well, I've actually, so what is the deal with this, Barry? Because a lot of times, and I know that I think outside the box, and I've kind of come to the realization that the ghosts that I've seen in my lifetime were probably ETs. Okay, I'm just being honest about it. When I wake up at night, there'd be like people wearing Victorian era clothing in my bedroom, solid, like humans standing there in my bedroom, talking to me telepathically. Okay, why is it always the go-to like Victorian era clothing? Okay, now I'm saying, like, for me, I think it's all screen memories from like having ET interactions when I was a kid. However, a lot of times when people describe seeing ghosts, they're in Victoria era clothing. Now they go, I mean, I would think ghosts would go all the way back to the beginning of time. Like, why are we not seeing cavemen ghosts, cavewoman ghosts and stuff? You know what I mean? Like,
I've crossed over a couple of cavemen, earthbound.
Have you?
Yeah,
No
they've been
way.
there for thousands of years. They're more than that. You know what I mean?
That's
Yeah,
trippy.
and they talk like that.
Ooga
They're
booga.
talking, and it's a shame that saying like, well, everything was fine before y'all messed up the world. Basically, what do you mean messed up the world? All the earthquakes. They're blaming humanity for those earthquakes. At
Oh my
least that one
gosh.
did. That one, I
I
can't say did.
asked.
That one did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's real. Trust me, when you start going that far back, it's really a trippy thing. My God, you got earthbounds that are back
Oh
here
my
like
God.
Captain Caveman. I mean that type of deal, or maybe what was it? That terrible movie Encino Man. But I mean, seriously, you got some earthbounds like that running around, and it because they don't perceive time that quite the same as us. They may be aware of it, the passage of it, but it's not the same in terms of perception.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So,
wow.
yeah, and regarding what you said, actually, the Victorian clothes, that's one thing, but a lot of times when you get the ETs, they can do these, especially the negative extraterrestrial species, or types, they can do these alien mind scans and telepathic hypnosis. And that's also a place where screen memories will come from also. So in that situation, a lot of times some of these beings will use like some of those gray forms, they'll use a clown. And it's amazing how many contactees I know that have an issue with clowns. It comes up far more than you would think.
Yeah.
You know, my own brother, he's not a contactee, but he don't like no clowns. And I mean that's based on I guess the movies will do that for us alone. It and a Killer Clowns from Outer Space. That was kind of a comedy, but I mean those movies alone will make you dislike clowns. But they'll often use like screen memories. They'll use clowns. They use owls. I've seen deer being used. I think some of the beings I was dealing with were using deer to a degree to some of these holographic projections.
Oh yeah. I'm not a fan of clowns, but I used to wake up at night with my taxidermed owl. It was in my okay. This is wild because you just said clowns and owls, and I swear to goodness, y'all, I promise y'all, when I was a kid, I grew up in a log house out in the middle of the woods in the country on a farm. And when I finally got old enough, I finally moved downstairs by myself. I was the only person. I had a brother and sister and my parents, and we all slept in the upstairs rooms, and our bedrooms were there. I got to go downstairs when I was like, I'm gonna say like 10, 9, so probably about my son's age today, right? And I had my own bedroom downstairs with my own phone on the wall. It was old school, okay? And at night we had lace curtains. I hated those lace curtains because I felt like somebody was watching me all the time out in the country. But my mom had put these like clown dolls in the rocking chair in my bedroom facing my bed. So I had like a whole gang load of clown dolls. And then I had this owl that my dad had found on the farm at some point or out somewhere where he lived. He found a dead owl and he had it taxidermed. He did not harm the owl. He found it dead. Okay. And so he had it taxidermed and it was like its wings were out and it had this like crazy look on its face, like it was about to attack. And when it would lightning during a storm, like I would wake up at night sometimes when the lightning and the thunder was crashing, and that's was out. The owl would be there lighting up in my room with this owl, and then I had these clowns staring at me too. And that's how I saw that was my childhood. Okay. So y'all wonder why I am the way I am today. That's partly it. And that's so weird that you mentioned those are like two of the screen memories. And I'm talking about seeing people in Victoria era clothing. Well, shoot, I had clowns in my room and owls too, all simultaneously.
And
So, yeah.
screen memories, that could be a good one. And also the Victorian era too. It seems interesting. It seems like the dimensions were thin or the conscious was, because they do seem to pop up quite a bit. You know what I mean? The inability to cross over, or even phantom projections, which may have something to do with that era time wise, But yeah,
It's worth looking into. Actually, I think that's something really interesting to look into. Like, why is it Victorian era? I think a lot of people have experienced that.
Yeah, it is interesting. Let's look at. But I mean, it probably depends on where you go too. I mean, like for me, like where I'm at, it's going to be come around a lot of Native American spirits. You know, the first time it happened to me, as far as realizing how much Native American spirits were on the land here, I was with my sister. My sister's, you know, like 17 years older than me, and my parents were out of town. I was a kid, and she took me to these friends that she had that lived by the campus here. And there's a house right off campus, and it was got older white house, and these guys are musicians, but they're talking like around a table not too far from where I was, and I was falling asleep on this couch. And you know, when I was closing my eyes, I start hearing this tribal music, a very Native American, almost the drums and everything, you know, and almost the dancing, like a powwow. And I open up my eyes and say, it must be the TV. Open up my eyes, and it's something like it's on silent, and it's like emergency or something on TV. It's not a Native American show. So I start drifting off again. I hear it again. It happened like 3 times. And I went there and I said, where's that music coming from? And the guys, everything got really, you could hear a pin drop. They're just looking at me. They said, you heard the music? What? I said, Native American music. They looked at me and said, it's coming from probably upstairs. There's a shaman that walks around up there. Sometimes it sounds like he has chains on and bells, and he's dancing around up there. But sometimes it sounds like there's a bunch of them, and it's a chorus. And that, you know, that what it was is that place was built on a Native American cemetery.
Oh my God!
Like, you know, like the things that similar to what the Poltergeist was based on. That's not a joke. And you know, something else I'll bring up, and it's something I like. I mentioned Preston Denton a couple times. You know, he was somebody else that took a notice of the contactees that have had contact in cemeteries, or the amount of UFOs that have been seen over cemeteries. Now, is this dealing with necromancy? Are they reanimating the dead? Or is this something they're helping souls to cross over, earthbound spirits crossed over? What is it they're doing? Are they using the holographic quantum hologram to make copies of people, clones of people?
Whoa.
Are they extracting dead DNA? Or all these things? But it's stuff like that we need to pay attention to. And what beings is it that are on those ships that are doing that? Are they AI ships? Are they normal? Are they back engineered human? It's all that's worth investigating, you know?
It is. Yeah. Seems like Aleister Crowley had summoned or conjured up some kind of like alien demon too. I forgot his name, but he looked like a great alien or something. He had a big head. And I don't know. I'm still weirded out that he bought that house and did all those rituals there, where they had a church before and a graveyard. First of all, where the entire congregation of the church died inside the church in a fire, and a wizard before that had gone and taken the dead bodies out of the cemetery and reanimated their bodies. Like, this is like the history of this land. Like, what is the deal with all this? I don't know. It just seems very dark to me. It's all very
You think? You think?
Yeah. There's something to it. I mean, I'm just saying that is a highly charged energetic vortex right there, is what it is. And that's what my data was really honing in on. But of course, it was interesting because that data right there was supposed to be just the Loch Ness Monster, but it was more like the energetic vortex that's right there than it was an actual monster. And like I said, I find it very fascinating that only 2 words written in only 2 animals, or animal, the one animal, plural, okay, singular and plural, was dragon. Okay, so I don't know. I find this all super fascinating. It's a beautiful place over there. Man, it is on my bucket list. I would love to go there. My family's Scottish, actually, too. I'm Scottish Welsh, if anybody was wondering. I know y'all are probably wondering.
The Clan Jones. The Clan Jones. So it is.
Well, actually, my Scottish side would be more Henderson's. Yeah. So, I'm the Jones side is Welsh. If you know anybody from Wales, they're probably a Jones. Yeah.
So do you have a kilt, Jones?
I do not.
You have a
I think
Celtic
just men wear
Henderson?
kilts, don't they? I don't know if women wear kilts. I think that's a man thing. Look, I know I said I got big balls. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, y'all.
Or big ovaries, right?
It was figurative.
Oh man.
Yes. That is too funny. But yeah, it's oh my gosh. Yeah. M13 says Crowley was being tricked by greys and demons and who knows what else. Yeah, there's a lot of strange things going on with him.
One of those demons he used to incantate or summon. It looked like not quite a gray, but it had the really large head and
that's what I was talking about. I'm about to pull it. I need to pull it up. Let's see. I found out his name. I can't remember the name.
What was the name of that being? Do you remember?
I'm looking it up right now.
It had a name.
Yes, sir. We'll pull it up.
But I mean, it's weird because when I'd seen that illustration for years and years and years. I didn't know the origin of it.
Let's see. I have it here. I'm trying to find his name. I don't know why it's not showing me. Let's see. I got Reddit. I would pull it up on the big screen, but I don't know what it's going to give me right here. I'm sure somebody in the chat's putting it on there. So a drawing made by Aleister Crowley of a being claimed to have encountered in Brazil in 1915, and his name was Lamb. Okay, his name was Lamb. Here, I'll show everybody the picture right here. Let me share my screen right quick. If you guys want to see this, let me take this down and let's present the screen. Let's share it. Okay, sorry, y'all. Bear with me. It's coming.
There it is. Yep, there it is.
That's him. That's him.
And
okay, let me make it bigger so you can see it.
Similar to some types of those negative, quote unquote, ebens.
It does. It does. That's it right there. That is Lamb.
Or if you watch comic books, used to read comic books back in the day. Spider-Man and Hulk there's a criminal. Hector Hammond. He looked a lot like that, man. He would sit in this machine and his head would get really elongated, just like that.
Oh my gosh.
Hector Hammond. Anyway,
oh
sorry.
My gosh. Well, let's see. Yeah. Let me see if I can get some information on it. Yeah, I can't remember. This is Reddit, so I better just go ahead and take this down because we don't know what people are writing on there. Let me stop sharing my screen right there. Okay. So that was it. He was in contact with that little demon guy right there, who looks like an alien. There was actually a picture from Stephen Greer, if I'm not mistaken, that he took, and it looked a lot like Lamb. Did you mention that a while ago, or did you not mention that?
No, but I have seen that.
You know what I'm talking about?
In fact, one of those babies, one of those little alien things looked similar to that too. Yes. Although it was debunked to a degree, but
makes you wonder.
Well, I mean, when dealing with demonic presences and how often demonic and these negative inorganic beings use the screen memory of abductions to attack people, when listening to Credo Mudo and talk about that, and I'll bring him up because, I'm sorry, I didn't want to mention this guy's name. David Icke. I don't give a damn how you pronounce it. I don't care. Don't call. The point being, Wikipedia. I don't care. But point being, I mean, I know he talked a lot about the different types of. Everybody wants to always talk about Dracos, but a lot of that he had a good body of information, but a lot of that he got from Credo Mutua, and Credo was the first person I heard describe the higher class of royalty Dracos that have the wings. Mm-hmm. Okay. But when looking at them, I don't think those are the dragons that are being represented by the Chinese. I don't think that's the type of dragon that you're talking about either. In my opinion, mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not an expert on reptiles and serpents, but I believe they're quite different though.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, and in that way, because it's the higher draconians that are supposed to have those wings, but they're also supposed to be about 8, 9, 10 feet tall.
Oh, the Draco reptilians.
And I think the most interesting deal, and I've mentioned this before, I won't give any names because it'll bring me too much heat. But one-on-one with the individual that has that picture, and I wish I could pull up the picture, but it's the individual in this military
the white
uniform.
one?
Yeah, standing with the white one. And I asked, I said, this guy's talking me to death. So I said, hey, man, wasn't that supposed to be you? Certain things I want to know. Black extraterrestrials was one. What you really done seen, yo? Number two is, what is, is that supposed to be you? And they told me the whole story. And like I mentioned to you before, I read micro expressions, not just kinesics and body language, gesture clusters. I also read micro expressions. And the micro expressions of the face are much harder to mask unless you're a really good trained politician or actor. And even then, you can't always do it, you know?
Yeah.
This individual's telling me that they went to where's Silicon Valley or wherever, and they went to, it's supposed to be a cleanup deal for their military team or whatever. And the building's almost destroyed looking, but inside it's really, really nice. The same way these people I've regressed talk about these malls they go to that are abandoned malls that they get these trainings in. And these are people I try to connect. It's at SSP or something different. It was like something different and that too, you know? But anyway, he had told me, he said that they said that when they went down in like the basement, and in the basement, when the elevators open up, they smell more urine than they've ever smelled in their life. And some type of reptiles do smell a little urine-like. And then,
my snake aquarium smelled like that. We had to clean it out all the time when I had a snake.
And then the telepathy started just going crazy. And they described it to me, it felt like an assault. And then that thing came out from the back, and it's just, completely communicating with it. But they were describing it to me more like a painful, torturous type of communication, not something that was, you would want. And and I will say it again, of course, could they have been faking me out? I'm pretty good though. They could have been, but I'll tell you, I'll use a word that I don't like because it was used racially back in the days of exploitation, but they look spooked, straight up.
Did they?
They look very scared. Yeah, their eyes, their journal, they were more than eager to stop talking about it when it was over. I could tell,
Really?
The B ask a few too many questions. First, I want to know if it's BS. Beyond just micro expressions, I want to know, and I want to know all behind it. And then it wasn't long after that they had told me they had another experience where they saw a royalty like that, the size of that, 8 feet tall or something, get compacted and get sucked up into an orb about the size of this. And that these
like what
orbs
we saw.
They're transdimensional vehicles. Yeah.
Well,
and
you and I have seen that with our own eyes.
That deals with the quantum hologram again. That whole thing, that's very real. That type of science.
Well, we've seen that. I wish that Matt would show that video on my show. I've asked him every time I talk to him. I ask him to come on the show. That video is, I don't know,
it'll flabbergast. Or better word, flabbergast. It's shocking to a degree.
Well, here's the thing: the woman who gave that to him is no longer alive today. Okay, and I'm not saying there's any funny business connected to her death, but I don't know.
Well, what are you saying?
Okay. Well, I'm saying that Matt is not showing that to the public.
What happened to her, Jessica?
She got a brain tumor. And,
really? Was it long after getting that footage?
She had a lot of good stuff. Let's just say she had a lot of good stuff. Okay. So I don't know. I'm not getting into anybody's personal business tonight. Okay. And I don't want to. But I'm just saying it's dangerous. He feels like it's too dangerous to show it to the public right now.
Check it out. You have one of your audience, and they've come onto my platform, really cool. And I never say it right. I don't know their real name, but it's Urso supervisor.
Urso, yeah. Urso's in here.
They had asked a question on, I think it was the live or one of those last videos I'd done. And they asked what I thought about if a person's normal vibratory level would allow them to enter a portal, and if that would work. And I said, I think that probably would allow you to enter, but I think once getting in there, sustaining is very dangerous. And I started thinking about your team members, especially in reference, because once they went into that cube, I think if you don't have the same vibrational signature as the environment you're at, it's super dangerous. And there's a radiation factor too. Yep. Kind of like some of those, when I was younger, watched a real hardcore rain that you can't see out. And when it's done, there are these frogs all over on the streets and everywhere. And my mom kept saying it's like when it rains fish. And those frogs, like, they were just gone all of a sudden. Or when it rains fish, they don't live very long. It's not just they're out of water, it's a vibrational difference. They're not from here. They just slipped through one of those portals or something's happened. One of those cracks. And and so when dealing with that, we have people that go into these different environments or go through a portal accidentally. I'm not so sure we can sustain ourselves there. And there's another thing, once you get over there, what energy do you use to get back or to get through it? And that's something we did look at Sasquatch about, is whether they're using trees or not. And I mentioned it before that your buddy that I would love to meet, MK Davis, did a deal on the Paul Freeman footage. And it's the one where he's, oh, whoa, there he goes. You remember that one? But
yes.
During that, there's a bunch of flashes that are happening around this Sasquatch that's interfering with the camera equipment. And MK Davis actually puts each one of those flashes, he shows them to you. And, to me, and that's a paranormal factor. And what energy is it Sasquatch uses to go in between dimensions? Mm-hmm. Besides just pure will, what energy does it come from? That's a problem with, like, as much as I like Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, I met him a couple years ago, twice, but he's not that big either. I was disappointed. But he's not that tall. He's not that tall. But anyway, sorry. But point being, where would that energy come from Banner to turn into the Hulk? It'd be more than just, hey, I got beat up, so I'm really pissed off. That's not enough energy for molecular change, cellular change like that. And we're dealing with these dimensions and these portals. It's starting to get into that type of a science.
Yeah.
So it's just food for thought, but I think especially if we accidentally wander into one of those things, it's very dangerous how to get back, and can we survive there for how long? And before I sound super stupid, really keep this in portion with what I call temporal aphasia too. And that's one of these ships I've been on that's not fully corporeal, but it's enough for us to exist there third dimensionally. I could. And them too, to a degree, although I think it was painful for them. All right. But for me, I'm very sick in that environment. It's not an equal vibrational signature or frequency signature or both, maybe not even the same density. I don't know. I'm not a scientist like that. But something causes that. And as they kept saying, it's because the inside and outside of the ship are not in the same dimension. The outside of the ship is here like us, me and you, physical, but the inside is not. It's a different dimension. Kind of like Tom Baker explained the TARDIS, that which box is bigger. You had two of them, and the girl says, that one is bigger. He sets it over on the counter, and then comes back with the little one and goes, how about now? She goes, that one over there is still bigger. He's like, man, it looks smaller. She says, because it's further away. And he said, exactly. So if you can have this here and there, the small one fits inside the big one. Or the little one will fit, the big one fit inside the little one. And she looked at him, she goes, that's stupid. And he said, oh, that's transdimensional engineering. Key discovery for our people. That's what he said.
God.
And we start thinking about
things differently.
Yeah, because I always trip out, Jessica. It's one thing to sit up and talk about this stuff, but look, I see this thing out there that's tripped out anyway, freaking out, okay? Then all of a sudden you're on board this thing, you get drawn in there by like this blue light that turns gold and blue. It pulls me in there, and then I'm in a room that is bigger than that thing looked like in the sky.
Wow. Yeah.
Let alone the other rooms in there. That's why I was forced to deal with Doctor Who and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I liked it already, but it's like, man, that's supposed to be just science fiction, though. But it's not. A lot of that stuff has got reality to it, Mm-hmm. Like, for example, where's Dennis when we need him? He was
in the chat. He was in here for a second. I saw him.
He would, like, for example, the first TARDIS, like back in the 70s, when they would walk in, they go in that door, there was like a little black hallway, a small hallway, and then they would step into the control room through another set of doors. That's the quantum hologram. You see what I'm talking about? I've been talking about that long, but now they don't do it. Now they just open up the door of the TARDIS, and the control room's right there. There is no hallway anymore. But there used to be. That science is right there. So when he's talking about if you can have it here and keep it there, it's all that stuff. You know, it's not just transdimensional engineering. It's uh, uh, engineering. Was it geometric engineering? You know,
Whoa.
geospatial engineering. Way beyond me, but I know it's real because I've been on board something like that. And I've said it before. I can't talk for other contactees, but I don't think I could have survived there very long.
Mm-hmm.
Anything beyond whatever time that I was obviously longer than I think still now. It's 4.5 hours here, but over there it's different. You know what I mean? So anyway, point being just things like that. And I think by the same token, those beings can exist here. You know, and it says a lot about these beings, like they'll talk about in this book, the prince's staff, some of the first non-corporeal beings to come here. They call it Prince Caligastia, Caligastia. And he came with certain people here on board a ship, and they were on all non-corporeals. And when they got here, they started mating with like earth spirits, like nature spirits and angelic realms that were already here, seraphim, and it produced these things called the midway creatures. Primary midway creatures and secondary midway creatures. The primary were more non-corporeal, as to where the secondaries were closer to us and can manifest. And they have a lot description of being tricksters and sounding like jinn, things similar to jinn and inorganic beings like that. You know, but anyway, the prince's staff, something they don't say in this book that they do say in like Comedic, is that they were trapped here by the electromagnetic fields of the earth. Once they got here and they stopped having the energy from the ship and things, they got trapped here, and they fell in that rebellion spiritually, and they got trapped here through the electromagnetic fields.
Oh.
You know, and then you get others that come here, like what this book calls Adam and Eve, but I believe that's Inky and his wife, and it describes everything about them in this book. It's very interesting, but supposedly they call them material sons and daughters that are dispatched to a planetary sphere when it reached a certain level of evolution for biological uplifting, biological uplifters. And it described how there was shrubs that they brought from another sphere on board that craft. And when the shrubs ran out and they fell in the rebellion, they became mortal to a degree.
Oh.
And, you know, and at that point it describes how all these women were brought to Adam for him to reproduce this germplasm, this Adamic plasm with them, okay? Blood plasm.
Whoa.
And when you look at the Sumerian text, all right, and I've done a video of it, you look at what they say about Inky when he was here, you see him standing on these, I said it before, on the stairwell, and he's got this waterfall coming up with all these fish in it. Okay.
Fish.
Yeah, when I was talking to Littleton and Hal, we were talking about this guy recorded, and they almost wouldn't let me put it on my channel. Okay, but what that's showing is it wasn't just a spout, a waterfall. It's showing he was the god of sperm. Okay, biological uplifter. And not just that, this book talks about how the material son and daughter come from this place called Dentia around galactic center, a planet, an architectural sphere, they call them. You've looked at some of those unknowingly, okay? And that when they're dispatched from there, they go through a training there. And when they get to the sphere they're supposed to inhabit in biological uplift, they go through this training before they can do what they come to do. They come to the planet, go through this training. You see Inky going through that training right there. And not just what I told you, there's another deal in the Sumerian text where you see this giant bringing a woman that is right here. She's about from here to here, elbow to about here, and a forearm. And her whole, she's sitting right there. And it's presenting it to Inky. Okay? And behind is this giant with these giant test tube type things on its knees, look like it's switching the things. And they're showing you right there when this book talks about how it gives you a number of how many women they brought to him. It's very fascinating. So like I said, I don't put all my stock in this book, but there's some things you can't throw the water out with the baby with the bath water. You know what I mean? And when I see what they're talking about Adam and Eve, I believe is Inky in them. And I challenge somebody to prove me wrong. You gotta look at my video and prove it wrong. You know what I mean? So it's just
cool.
food for thought, if nothing else. All right, but some things that I think that we don't know. I've told you before how we get these classifications, whether it be religion, science, these other things, spirituality, paranormal, and the classifications, Jessica, start living on their own. They develop identities of their own. And some of these things might not be the separate stuff that we think.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
sorry, that's some sort of speech.
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, all this stuff is connected. I mean, we take little detours through these rabbit holes we go down and stuff, but it's all connected, and it's all very pertinent information, no matter what. And I love it. And Jock says Bob Lazar said that he was allowed to go into one of the craft they retrieved that was housed at Area 51, and it was much bigger inside than it was outside.
Yeah, so and also John Lear said he was on board a craft that, or went in a craft that was like 6 feet wide. And as enough, he stuck his head in there and he looked inside, and it was like 100 feet or a couple hundred feet in there or more. But he said this thing was just like almost the size of a person, like a escape capsule or a coffin type size. But inside, you look in there, and this huge thing in there. So again, that's dealing with geospatial spatial geometry. Wow. Beyond me, I'm not very good with math. I like science, but I'm not very good with math. So, it's beyond me by far. I don't have the computations. But I know I've experienced something that's quite similar, and I think it's what makes that sickness. You know what I mean? At least on some of the ships, and maybe not all of them. You got other civilizations that are more our type of creation or vibration or manifestation. And it's easier to exist there or deal with them. Those are the beings that can walk around here. And when you listen to Credo, and what he doesn't call those beings gray, he calls them, oh man, Jessica, Mandawi. Anyway, but when he talks about them, and we talked about before on the show how he said that they ate one. That's one of the passages that you can eat. That the Sangamas have to eat one of these grays, the meat of it, and how it's like this great. Makes you really super sick at first.
Tastes
and
like
if you
chicken.
if you don't die, no. If you don't die, it gives you like almost a DMT, beyond DMT type of experience. Okay, but he talked about how they're able to kill those things, and how they have a way of a certain type of tree that they use, that they sharpen, that will actually cut through that hide of the gray, exposing this pink thing inside that's really what they are. Okay, and it's when going into that, it's real fascinating, and him talking about how they call the name that they use for grays is not to call them extraterrestrial, it was calling them the tormentor of people, of humans. And it was always distressing to me, because he starts describing a lot of melanin people being abducted in Africa by these grays and being worked on in these laboratories you and I are familiar with. But he's saying it's different than it really labs. They're hell centers, hell pieces, and this demonic torture. So I think we're dealing with a little bit of both, and who knows where it begins and ends, because Lord knows, I've not dealt with grays, but you got 4 types of them: the ebens, the clones, the little ones. Excuse me, you got the ones with the big noses and the roped headdress.
Oh yeah,
Which describes, like I mentioned before. I don't try to repeat myself all the time, but when I first heard Betty Hill talking, she described the leader of the Greys a different way than he's ever been depicted, and he said that he looked like he had a big, huge nose like Truman Capote.
Well. There's just a whole bunch of different types of ETs out there. I can't.
Jimmy Durante.
That's right. Jimmy Durante.
The Snoz.
He sang a song about Inka Dinka Doo. Oh my gosh, he sang a song about Inka Dinka Doo, didn't he? Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Inka Dinka Doo. I wonder if that had to do with Inky. I don't know. Anyways, maybe I'm just reaching there with that. But if that was Jimmy Durante, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Chuck Barris worked for the FBI. And Mr. Rogers was a sniper. Did you know that?
Mr. Rogers was a sniper?
Mr. Rogers was a sniper. Look it up.
That's why he was so kind. Some of the
Red
nicest
Rogers.
people are straight cold as ice when it comes to sniping people and stuff. I'm just saying.
Oh, come on. I was a Mr. Rogers fan, weren't you?
Oh my God, Moondog said I'm right. You know what? And I bet people are wondering, how would I know any Jimmy Durante songs? Well, I used to do chorus. I used to sing and stuff. I did performing arts. I was a big shot in my performing arts troupe. We did a lot of singing. Okay, old songs and stuff. So that's why I remember that. Ink, a dink, a dink, a dink, a dink, a dink.
I'm going to ask you, did you do like?
Yeah.
I remember like the Peace Corps, man. Puff the Magic Dragon? You sing Puff the Magic Dragon? Just give us one, Jessica. No. Lay down the Puff the Magic Dragon for us.
No, I don't know that one. We never sang that song. I think my vocal coach and my teachers, they tried to keep it pretty rated G. Okay. And I know that's all up for interpretation. I didn't know what any of that stuff meant. I still don't know what that means.
How about Jeremiah was a bullfrog? You had to sing that one from your area.
I remember there was a little boy that lived in the neighborhood his name was Jeremiah, and we used to call him the bullfrog when I was a kid because of that song. Yeah. But back when I was hanging out with Big Boss Man out in Dallas, Georgia. Yeah. With my uncles, my cousins. Yeah. But anyways. Yeah. So Mr. Rogers was a Marine Corps sniper.
I don't know if it was a Marine.
That is wild. I didn't know that. I'm just learning this for the first time ever.
Supposedly, he had a couple of kills, they say, too.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, I would assume he probably did. I mean, wow, that's wild. Ascena Phoenix says, Jessica and Barry, what are your theories behind the Fae cryptids reported in Europe, especially Ireland? Well, let's move over to Ireland.
What's the name of that island? Is it Finhorn? Is that the name of it, where all those fairies are seen? I think when it gets to fairies, it's a trip because I wonder where it begins and ends, because you've got those fairies that appear to be more elemental, and then you've got those that appear to be more like little people.
Oh yeah.
So it makes you wonder, and I've seen something that were these type of that I thought they were fireflies at first, but they're actually called wisp. So a Native American friend had told me they were called wisp, and these things were they were too big to be fire. Fireflies is just a small part of their abdomen that lights up, but these things were like they were a blue light. Where I come from, most of the fireflies have a green light. This was a blue light, and once it flashed on, it stayed on. It didn't flash, and these things were huge, and they started flying into the hole of this tree. And I was looking at it. I was freaking out. We're out in the middle of what they call no range, where there's nothing but those grates to stop the cows from crossing over. And it's an old school out there, abandoned, tore up. And once the chiggers got done burrowing into my skin because they flying through the wind out there, I started seeing these fireflies. And my brother was tripping. You're tripping out on those things. I was like, you're not looking at them? There were other real fireflies there, but there were these things. And the best I could come was this type of Brazilian firefly that it's got a blue, but it doesn't stay on lit like that. I mean, I was trying to see these things, like to see what their body was. If the luminescence was that big, okay, let's say about that big, or bigger than this stone I have over here, a little bigger than this, okay, that means that it was huge, those things. Still to this day, my brother laughs. She's still tripping out on those things. And it got me to, and then realizing some of my contact experiences. Look, after that happened to me, the first onset experience, and went through this, and somebody else had experience too, we kept going back out there. We kept trying to meditate, trying to induce this stuff. Heck, I even ate some real good blue Hawaiians and went out there. Now I freaked out. I realized I was depressed, brother, and all the other things that those magic mushrooms will show you, the really good psilocybin, if they accept you. But guess what? No spaceships, no aliens, no none of that. You know what I mean? So, and especially my conclusion, I was like, well, since the walls and there's a fungal component, they said to the ships, the mushrooms must be able to induce contact. They didn't.
The mushroom?
No, that's what I thought. It was worth a shot. I was desperate to try to have to control my own experiences, because they're always the one that did it even when I was a kid, and it happens when they want it to happen. I wanted to have when I wanted to happen. But you know, the second time I had tried that, there's no mushrooms on this one, but that's when it was. The third time it was these fireflies everywhere, and there was so many of them that the trees, the pine trees are going woo 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 woo, and there's the females that stay more stationary or crawl, while the males do more flying. And I'm not lying to Jessica, there were just hundreds and hundreds of males in the air. It was unreal, and I kept thinking I was so disappointed because no ships. And then the experience came after that. Okay, because we're driving out there. The individual looked at me saying, "There's a ship. It's out there. It's out there." I can see it kind of twirling out there, but then it's a dirt road, and I can't. The deer jumping across and all this other stuff. I had to be very careful, you know. But when getting out there, the ship's gone. It's not there. But all these fireflies are going crazy.
Wow.
And eventually, just started being quiet and just trying to enjoy that. And the ship manifested around us later. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about, pure conscious craft that can actually manifest to being almost third dimension enough to where we can be there. Okay, a whole different type of manifestation and materialization. But at that point, I had no doubt that the fireflies were aware of the light ships. Period. I don't care what nobody says. Oh, they were definitely aware.
That's wild.
Okay, and so that's what took me into the discussion I had with John Vivinco. You know, one of the remote view targets he had, blind targets for his team, was this certain type of fireflies that was in the Brazilian forest that disappeared. And there was very odd things going on with them. And when they remote viewed them, his team had come up with that these fireflies that were being seen now, were different, were actually the progenitors of these others, and that they're from another dimension, not just extraterrestrial, but another dimension too. And that they brought those others here, their cousins or whatever, to flourish here, and they got destroyed in the forest fire.
Whoa, that was remote viewing data? That's wild.
It's on my channel that we did like 40-minute video. We're sitting there talking. And so that, you know, that's just the connect there. And taking it a step forward, okay, I have a friend that I told you I grew up with, and he's after we graduated, he went to the Israeli army. He took off, and after that, he got some PTSD from what he saw over there in combat, and he came back and he started just hiking all over the United States and other countries too. I mean, he goes all over the place. And everything David Paulides says don't do. That cat's hiking by himself. And he's seen nature spirits. Right. And I asked him, I was like, man, you know, Sasquatch? He was like, man, I don't think they could exist. I've never seen anything. And that was kind of somewhat traumatizing, you know. But he had an experience. And someone else was with him, actually. And he said he was walking around, not Lake Michigan, but it's one of the Great Lakes. Maybe it was Erie. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, there's very dense timbers over there, Barry. He said, we're hiking through there. And at this one point we saw this, he said it was what was a craft. He said it was undeniably a UFO, a glowing UFO that seemed to be having trouble. The way it was in the sky, and it seemed like it was cutting in and out. It was flickering in and out. And he said it was so odd. But then he said we couldn't keep watching it, because on top of one of these timbers at the very top were these the lightning bugs, and they were making this strange buzz, and they were really bright, and they were just swarming around the top of this tree. Just one, no others. And I let him go on with his story, Jessica, and he gets done, and he says that it ends because these jet fighters come, and this thing disappears. And I was like, "Are we still watching the lightning bugs?" He said, "Well, they seem to kind of quit and went away." And I said, "You know, did it maybe occur to you that you were seeing some type of a craft that was either in distress or on some type of a scout mission, and those fireflies you were seeing were the occupants? You're dealing with a lot of light there." Remember, we're walking around the neighborhood, man. That cat stopped and looked at me. You know, he said, "What?" He said, "My God, I never thought of that." He said, "I'm not saying it's right. It's food for thought, though." You know?
Yeah. I mean, we think outside the box over here. That's for sure. Between you, yourself, and me, myself and you, ourselves, we think outside the box. Everybody in the audience as well, and so I mean, it's the only way to make sense of things. Sometimes is to look at things from a different perspective, and some things will never make sense. So
I think all the bioluminescent creatures on Earth should be observed.
Mm-hmm.
And paid very close attention to, and you start dealing with not just speleologists, but astrospeleologists. They talk about those type of things that might be in like the caves of Europa, and they're looking for stuff like that. Bioluminescent creatures or something similar to the Yeti crab. If you hit the Yeti crab, it sits on the thermal vents, and it feeds by the bacteria that blasts off the vent through its hair. The Yeti crab, and those vents are hot too.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Extremophiles.
Yeah.
That's what they're called, extremophiles. And how many of those are on other planets, especially in caves? And you start dealing with other components for life, like silicon, sulfur. And then we know that when you start dealing with some of these beings that are non-corporeal, inorganic, they have a sulfur type of smell to them. And sometimes
demons do.
Some of these places, and am I wrong on this? But some of the places where you detected high radiation count, did you smell sulfur too? I can't remember.
No, I don't think I've ever said that before. No, I mean, sulfur is usually connected to like demonic, dark entities and things like that. So, no, I've never said that before.
No, I didn't say you said it. I was asking.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I've not heard of that. Anybody encountering sulfuric smells or the radiation, unless you're like in a haunted location or something, I would assume that might happen, but not doing the Bigfoot stuff.
Well, a lot of hauntings are also time fissures, time distortions. That's why they're haunted sometimes.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's a rip in the fabric of time and space.
Whoa.
That's
okay.
Why some places are, or I guess we could say, more easily haunted. You know what I mean?
What if that's like where the Loch Ness Monster is? What if that's what's going on there?
Well, you get enough conjuring of dark energy or enough blood spill, it'll do it too. And
perfect,
if you think about it,
perfect place, Loch Ness, for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a type of a life energy. Yeah. Like I said,
came full circle, maybe?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Once you start dealing with that kind of dark thing and the different substances and blood and concoctions they use for manifestations and hauntings and all these things and conjuring, it gets real creepy, even to where like what I was, taught about. And it took time. I found out later and backed this up with some things that was told to Castaneda, is that some of the older quote unquote shamans, the warriors, how they were able to bring these inorganic beings through a portal or through something like through scrying, and then use something like a nut or a crystal and trap the inorganic being or a box, trap them inside of it, and then only release it when they would give it and feed it periodically negative emotions. And then they would let them loose and feed the negative emotions and sick them on people, cursing someone. Like for Castaneda, his teacher had mentioned when he met his teacher, he got shot. He got shot. Like he's Native American or Native Yakai, and he got shot at the market trying to jack some apples or something. All right, and this old man, he makes this old man winds up healing him, and this old man is really decrepit and stuff. But he warns him once he's feeling better, don't ever run out on the property because there's a guard out there. And at one point, this guard come into the room before he had healed, and this guard he described as being similar to what you and I would call a golem. Okay, about like 8 feet tall with almost a single eye, a cyclops type thing, and just a horrible, hideous thing. So Don Juan was always scared to leave the cabin because he thought this thing was going to get him. It turns out this old man that he'd been working with comes in, goes over to the sink, puts a sink in the water, washes his face, comes up, and the cat's like half that age. Okay, he's half that age, and what he'd been doing is he had some crystal magic. He would release this, or maybe it's a box, but he would release that golem was actually a negative inorganic being that he was releasing and giving emotions and telling it, hey, scare that cat. Wow. You know what I mean? And then the being gets more energy when the person gets scared, and then puts
just
it back.
Like Monsters Inc. Yeah, just like that Loosh.
That's the danger of those people that are dreamers that can identify allies and identify negative inorganic beings in our visual. You know what I mean? Because they were doing that. Those real masters of perception were doing that and trapping those beings, bringing them to this side. And something like that happened to me when I was scrying. I was scrying and something came out of the mirror. I mean, it's a technique. You can actually you can build a frame around a mirror, but if you have a way, if you know how to actually put your intent into a mirror, you put the mirror down a rivering stream on the bottom and you gaze at it. Use the gaze techniques. And I had something that would I blessed the technique before. What come to me was this, sometimes it'd be a yellow, like light energy being. This pink one kept coming. And I liked it. And then it came through the mirror. But when it came through the mirror, it's gone. I can't see anything. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. So I'm trying to pull the mirror up, and all of a sudden, I looked aside of me, and Jessica, there's an atlas moth about this big, sitting like right next to me on this thing. Like, oh. You know what I mean? And the moths are the gatekeepers of knowledge. It's been said that the golden dust on the wings of a moth are pure knowledge, like pure AGLE. And that moth wound up being around my house, way away. I saw it 2 or 3 times. It's like it's following me around. See, the thing is, an inorganic being gets out, it comes through that portal. The levels of fluidity is what that accesses, that scrying, and then they can't get back. So they follow you.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it could become a negative thing. I wasn't negative being I was dealing with, but what if it was? If I didn't know how to protect myself. And stuff like that is very serious, but people don't understand.
Yeah. We got to pay attention to signs and symbols and all that kind of stuff, and monitoring spirits and all that. I feel you. Yeah, I get it. And this is for entertainment purposes only. I see those comments. Yeah. This whole thing has been. I know, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, this is some pretty good information though. Like we put out some interesting information tonight, and it did kind of come full circle. And we're talking about mirrors again. And I feel like I drew mirrors, and I was talking about the psychomantium and stuff in relation to like what's going on with the Loch Ness Monster and portals and rituals and all that. It's all connected. And Aleister Crowley was notoriously known for his sex magic as well. And I'm sure that was probably going on there as well. Speaking of bodily fluids and stuff like that, and conjuring and manifesting. So,
hey, Osho. I'm sorry, not Osho. Don Juan. I'm sorry, not Don Juan. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, aka Osho. When he got in trouble, he was having some big old orgies. And he tried to poison the water supply. Or actually, I say some people in his following did. They tried to poison an entire water city supply. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Check out Bhagwan. Everybody, check out Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. He wrote some great books that helped me when I was younger. My brother actually had them. I just stole them and read them. The Book of Secrets 1 and 2 are really good, and The Secrets of the Esoteric. Those are 3 really good books.
Okay. Oh my God.
Because he gives a lot of techniques, stuff to use that are pranayama, Kriya pranayama type stuff. I like that. Being the same astrological sign as you, I like the things that yield me immediate 3rd dimensional results. I don't want to wait around. I've practiced it a couple of times. I wanted to see something. And if it didn't work, I go on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Then the next thing. And then it takes time. There's a time lag. and that stuff starts manifesting later on when you're not expecting it.
Oh gosh, that's how manifesting works, though, right?
Well, you want it to be at least chronologically, but it don't work like that.
It doesn't work that way. I know you have to be a vibrational magnetic match to it. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
kind of like those portals, the other environment. I think, you know what I mean. I mean, I'm not saying that's why that happened, but was it the different signatures, magnetic or whatever it is, that got some of your teammates wound up getting sick behind that? Or was it the radiation poisoning? And I've mentioned it before, although people boot me out, but not your audience. But I said the black-eyed kids, and nothing has happened yet to disprove anything I said about those black-eyed children. I've been talking about that since you and I first started working together, that I believe they're a warning system from a different timeline. Everyone was talking about timelines right now and timeline incursions. I think that's what they are, and I think they're a warning system. And the fact the way they want to try to get in people's house, like the way Dracula would ask, but even more when you start really looking at it, when it was a popular thing, the 3 or 4 people that said they touched one or were really, really close on one, they got sick. And the type of sick they're describing sounds a lot like radiation poisoning. And when I say that, I think they come from another timeline where the nuclear war did go down, where they're always trying to push us to, and that these children have seen that disaster. And they're the survivor of a Holocaust, and that's why they're irradiated. That's why they're irradiated like that. And you get around them, people get sick. It's radiation poisoning.
I think
again, I'm not saying I'm right, but it's food for thought, and I challenge people to prove me right and wrong. You know, I mean, it's as viable as anything else. And when you really start studying them, and I said something else, that phenomenon would start falling off. Is it still happening like it was? No, those reports are nothing like they were.
We have a very diverse audience here at the Cryptid Hunters channel. If any of you guys are a black-eyed child, please go to Barry's house tonight and go let him know. Okay, go knock on his door tonight.
I ain't gonna be at my crib tonight. I'll be at the club. You want to go kick it with the DJ? No, just kidding.
Go meet Barry on the sidewalk tonight, y'all, and let him know. Let's see if you feel a little woozy. I'm just kidding. I hope you have one of those mats out at your front door that says "Go away."
Man, Jessica Jones just wished me radiation poisoning from a black-eyed child. Did y'all hear that? Yeah, I heard that.
Didn't wish you. I did not wish that on you.
You invited it. You gave the invitation to get radiation poisoning.
Just don't let them in. Don't let them in. You know better. You know better. Hey, I've had one at my door, and it's something you got to experience at least once, Barry. I'm just saying. You know,
that's a good point. Hey, so did that individual make you sick? But I know you got the warning system. Your spider sense went off, but did they make you physically sick?
No, I backed slowly. I tiptoed backwards down my hallway and slithered back into my apartment and closed the door very quietly and grabbed my pew. And I didn't get sick. No, I mean, I was probably a little nervous and stuff. But I didn't get sick. I don't recall getting sick. I think I would have remembered that. Yeah. So, but it's been a long time. I was the young. And you didn't touch him too, though. So, yeah. Lord, no, I didn't touch that man. No, I didn't open my door or anything. You know, it was pretty scary. But I have been in the presence of another person whose eyes turned black right in front of me, and it wasn't a black-eyed person. That was just a demonic possession or something. That's what that was.
Yeah, that does happen.
And that definitely made me sick for sure. That was just horrible. I mean, I didn't get physically sick where I was throwing up or anything, but I mean, it was just the fact that I watched that and it was somebody who I was close to. It was sickening. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't physically sick, but it was rough. It was very rough. So hopefully that'll never happen again. So, but anyways, y'all, Barry, this has been a great show. I want to thank you so much for being here with me tonight and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. It means the world to me. And I think we had a great discussion tonight. And my goodness, what strange data tonight, but wonderful, wonderful information for sure, I think.
Well, sometimes I feel like I might let you down because I don't go super deep into the demonic thing. You know, I mean, not that I'm not aware of it and things like that. I don't know anything about it, but I just don't. I try to stay off of it a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it'll take much to get a knock at your door. You know what I mean? Well, in terms of them trying to, you know what I mean? And there's so much. And right now we're watching this community implode on itself, some parts of it. So I'm trying to remain, protected and not get too deep into it. But it's good to be aware. And it's just darkness roams around here. It doesn't even stay in one place. It's a very dangerous place, It
is. Well, we can be the light in the darkness. And, and sometimes that's why black-eyed children and stuff would be attracted to certain people if they give off a certain light or something, maybe too. I don't know. I just tell everybody, don't ever live in fear, live in awareness. Just live in awareness, and don't let strangers in your house when they ask to come in and their eyes are completely black. Y'all just pay attention. That's why it's important to look people in their eyes. Okay, look people in their eyes. When you meet somebody, just look. Y'all remember how when you were a kid, did you get taught how to shake somebody's hand? Look at them in their eyes, but not too long. Okay, or that's kind of weird. Okay, but unless there's something up with their eyes, yeah, it's the window to the soul.
Poltergeist 2. Let me in. Let's talk about it.
Let
me in.
Go towards the light, Carol Ann. Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, like I said, the Loch Ness is on my bucket list. I would love to go there one day and go check this out myself. And I can't wait to hear about any more sightings. I hope that some more evidence comes out one day, more pictures, whatever. I'll be checking them out. I'll definitely be checking them out. Maybe we'll figure out what this is. But for now, my data says dragons. Okay, dragons. And maybe something that might have been conjured there or something. So, but anyways, if you guys want full access to this data, please go over to my Patreon and become a member over there. You get full access to the entire presentation that I gave tonight on this, but it's with all my data and everything is there. So shout out to all my Patreon members. I appreciate all of you guys so much. And Poncho said he'll be my security team in Scotland. Thank you. Yes. Are you a werewolf? Because I'm only going to roll with a werewolf security team in the future. Okay. So if you turn, you come. Okay. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding. Oh, he said he'll wear his kilt too. Thank you, Poncho. I appreciate you. All right. Well, Barry, where can everybody find you? Tell everybody about your YouTube channel and the services you provide and whatever else you'd like to promote tonight.
I can be reached. My email is barrylittleton13@gmail.com. The services I provide are various hypnosis sessions, earthbound spirit release, past life regression, trauma release. I also do earthbound, generational curse dissolvement, negative identity dissolvement. And I also do readings as well. You can reach me at barrylittleton13@gmail.com. You can check me out on YouTube under Barry Littleton. Very great handle there. On Patreon, Barry Littleton, Instagram and Facebook, Barry Littleton. YouTube is a good one. Thanks to people on Patreon, I put quite a bit of stuff out on YouTube. I try to. So
I love it. It makes it easier to find you because you just look up Barry Littleton, type in Barry Littleton, and you pop up. Yeah, it works out.
I was so shadow banned. At least one or two videos of the channel shows up now. Yeah. I used to type in my name, the exact stuff, and it would never come out, man. I was like, oh man, that was a drag.
Well, now you're popping up. You're definitely popping up. And so thank you so much for being here, Barry. I really do appreciate you.
Sorry if I took you so far off topic at the end, but we get to do it.
We made it full circle. No, it always we always bring it back full circle. It might be a little hint of something that was full circle, but it came full circle. Okay, so it worked. All right, well, everybody, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. I really do appreciate all the support, you guys, and we have the best chat on the internet. It does mean the world to me that you guys are all here, and I hope you'll come back and see me on Saturday night. I'll be back on the hunt, 10 p.m. Eastern. Be there or be square, y'all. Okay, and I will see you guys then. Until then, you guys stay safe out there.
Wow.
Don't live in fear. Always stay adventurous, y'all, and keep your head on a swivel. And if you get any kind of contact with the Loch Ness Monster, holler at me. I'll bring you on the show. All right, y'all have a great night.
Real quick, let me tell you this.
Okay.
I was trying to keep up with everybody in chat. I always thought I was doing really good. Jessica's over an hour behind.
I'm up to 850, and I thought I was really doing something. I mean, that's an unreal speed of that Chad. Sorry, I just had to say that.
I know.
Man,
Oh, I know.
thanks, everybody.
I'm the
That's
conductor over here. I understand. I'm the conductor of this Woo train, the Hot Mess Express. Okay, and I have a hard time keeping up myself. Okay, and I appreciate each and every one of y'all for that. And thank you so much for all your input, y'all. Y'all have a great night, and I will see you guys back here on Saturday. Bye, Barry. Bye, y'all.